Good evening, good people. We are here for our Monday, March 7th work session of the City Commission of the City of Muskegon. We have a number of items on our agenda up for deliberation and discussion. There's not public comment at the beginning of the meeting. However, there's public comment at the end of the meeting. If you would like to give remarks at the end, there's a sign-up sheet at the back. You can fill that out and give to the city clerk. It will be acknowledged at the end of the meeting. Please provide your name and address on there. You will not be asked to give your address at the podium, and I will not share your address at the podium. That is for our records and accounting. Without further ado, given that we have a fairly busy work session agenda, we're going to jump right into it and begin with Attorney General opinion on Open Meetings Act. But before we do, let's take roll call, Madam Clerk.
All right.
Commissioner Gorman,
Here.
Commissioner Emery,
Here.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Here.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Here.
Vice Mayor German, absent.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. And first item on the agenda is the Attorney General opinion on Open Meetings Act. We have our legal counsel here. I think he's leading out in that, unless the city manager would like to lead out first. No?
No, I don't know anything about it.
All right. I sure hope you know something about it.
It came out too late in my tenure.
Oh.
About a month ago, the Michigan Attorney General issued an opinion dealing with Open Meetings Act and the American Disabilities Act. The concern raised in that opinion has led to a variety of comments made on a variety of different social medias as to the suggestion that the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that public bodies, when meeting, allow virtual participation by its members, by citizens, etc. Before we get to the substance of that, because it is, in my opinion, far overstated in that respect, there's one preliminary matter, and that is that the Attorney General opinions are not binding on municipal bodies. They are not binding on the City of Muskegon. They are binding only on state agencies and state boards. So while you may want to do it, it is not a mandatory thing that you follow her directive. In deciding what you want to do, though, it's important that you differentiate between what you can and cannot do relative to members of the public body, you, people on the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, etc., and differentiate how those individuals participate versus the public who wants to be here, wants to listen to, wants to make comments to the public body. The requirements are not the same. The Open Meetings Act, let's deal with that first. That's the one you're more familiar with. That's what you operate under on a regular basis. Doesn't dictate whether the public can or can't be at a public body, whether they can communicate with members of the public body through a different forum, etc. The Open Meetings Act dictates what you as the public body needs to do. And with the recent amendments to the Open Meetings Act, with the exception of people that cannot attend because they are in the military and unable to be here, they're assigned someplace else, they're overseas, etc., all of the members of the public body need to be physically present. That was the last change that was done in response to the pandemic, where first there was a variety of virtual meetings that could occur. All of those expired. As of December 31, 2021, the only exception from physical presence at the public meeting is for those people that are absent due to being away on military duty. So it's not simply that they're in the military, they've got to be physically unable to be here at your public meeting. The Attorney General's opinion spends a very brief period of time with trying to reconcile the Open Meetings Act and the Americans with Disabilities. The Americans with Disabilities has the obligation that if somebody is disabled, you, along with other entities, need to reasonably accommodate the requests of disabled individuals to the extent that the disability is affected by the reasonable accommodation. For instance, if somebody is disabled but is residing in California, thus I would like to participate in your meeting by way of phone. No, because you're not here because of your disability. You're here because you live in another place. You're several thousand miles away. And that is not uncommon that the clerk will get a request from somebody who is not close to Muskegon, who is not disabled, who simply says, I can't, i.e. won't, travel 1,000 miles to come and make a presentation for 3 minutes at your meeting. Can I call in and make that presentation? And the answer is no. The Open Meetings Act doesn't allow that sort of thing. With the ADA, perhaps, but an analysis has to occur. There is an underlying problem with the Attorney General's analysis, however, is it is stated as if it is a done deal that if a state law says one thing and a federal law may perhaps allow for something different, you cannot follow the state law, you must follow the federal law. Think about that in a context. That's an overly broad statement. Think about it, marijuana. It is still illegal under federal law. And yet, I have yet to see somebody getting arrested as they walk out of any one of the medical marijuana or recreational marijuana facilities. Simply that there is a federal law doesn't mean your state law is preempted. Can you read them in harmony? And how do you want to read them in harmony is something for you. Certainly, you can adopt a policy or direct staff to prepare a policy that says we will undertake reasonable accommodation. You do that. The clerk does that now. She receives requests from people who indicate they're disabled. She reviews what the disability is. She will then decide what's a reasonable accommodation. You have had reasonable accommodations by way of, I will send an email to the clerk and the clerk will read it. She will pass it on to all of you. You have had people who cannot attend for disability reasons and thus will, as I understand it, have taped or videotaped, and it's shown to you. There are a variety of accommodations without making the entire process virtual, either by way of telephone or video. Whether you want to expand to allow that as a reasonable accommodation video is a topic for you to decide, not tonight, but mull it over, consider it. Likewise, if one of you or anyone on a public body has a disability making it unable to attend, you likewise need to make an assessment as to what is the disability. Does that disability make them unable to be at a public meeting? And certainly there are some disabilities that it would. No question about it. But let the clerk, if you're going to adopt that policy, let the clerk undertake that analysis as to whether or not the person has a disability making it difficult to attend a meeting, and thus reasonable accommodation would occur, and whether or not it's appropriate that that reasonable accommodation be by way of joining, by way of video or audio. The Attorney General's opinion makes quick of the point of you've had virtual in the past, thus it can't be a hardship to do it in the future. If you talk to staff that actually try and manage that, they're going to tell you that is not as simple as we've done it once, we know how to do it, we can keep doing it. You will also hear staff say, I think, that, okay, but you're looking now at increasing the number of staff at any of these public meetings, because it's not just yours. It's the Planning Commission, it's the Zoning Board of Appeals, it's the Civil Service Commission, et cetera, et cetera. And what you're probably going to need then is a staff person who's there on the substance, and a second person who's there trying to coordinate the telecommunication, etc. It is not a one person trying to do all of that at the same time. The other thing is, I would add one caveat. If you had somebody who had a disability and could not attend the meetings, and you're going to accommodate by way of doing that by way of phone or video, I would encourage you to have a caveat, but a majority of the members have to be physically present where you're at. As I said earlier, the Attorney General's opinion is only binding on state agencies. It isn't binding on you. It's not binding on the courts. And what I don't want to see happen, frankly, is a situation where there isn't a majority someplace here that, okay, if the Attorney General's wrong and the court says no, Commissioner so-and-so wasn't physically there, he doesn't count for a quorum, he or she doesn't count for the vote. You don't want to be left with, thus no meeting occurred, no action was taken, and we spent 2 hours voting yes or no on stuff that's just got struck down by a court. Happy to answer any questions. I went fast.
Commissioners, any questions or input? So while the Attorney General's opinion is not an enforceable mandate on local municipalities, it does potentially give us the latitude to expand or make our meetings more accessible based upon heard legal opinion and interpretation of the Open Meetings Act.
That's relative to the members. You've always had that ability for non-members. I guess the other thing I'd make the comment is, if you're going to do that, and if you're going to do it as a disability accommodation, as a reasonable accommodation, that's not just you. That is going to have to be any other body, because I am not going to be in a very strong position in front of a judge why you could accommodate Mrs. Smith when she wanted to make a comment to the city commission, but you couldn't accommodate Mrs. Smith when she wanted to make a comment to the planning commission.
Would we have the latitude for our televised and live stream meetings to allow members to call in with their public comment while our meetings that are not live streamed, so they cannot access it on television or the internet, they can't watch it from home in that way, you know, like the Citizens District Council or the Citizens Police Review Board, those type of meetings that presently are not live streamed or televised. If someone contacts the clerk's office in advance and says, I have a disability and I really would like to be either just attendee to watch it or potentially participate in it, to say, can you make arrangement for a Zoom meeting just for this session in which I'm interested in the activity and discussion happening at this particular meeting?
Legally, you could do it as a disability accommodation. Whether you practically can or not, I don't know. That's for somebody else to decide whether that's feasible to do or not.
But could we have that
Legally. Sure.
Can you have the dichotomy
Yes.
of the live stream televised ones where they're able to access that visually already, and now we're just adding the option for them to call in, versus one that's not televised, giving them the option to both access it by video and audio?
And you could do it without requiring that the person be disabled. Just as a matter of public course, all of our meetings, you know, anybody in the world.
I personally,
can
I
take
would like
3 minutes.
I personally would like us to offer the option for people to call in. I know our municipality, our neighbor to the south, Grand Haven, does that presently and has been doing that for a while. And I personally would like to make that more accessible for folks, not only, you know, given this pandemic, but just in general, of making our meetings more accessible. But that's something that, you know, staff will have to review how we would implement that in terms of allowing those phone calls, and then also the potential for allowing Zooms. But that's if this commission wants to go in that direction.
And remember, you've got a quantity problem, because now, good or bad, you limit yourselves to people that are probably within 20 miles, 30 miles, coming to your meetings to make a 3-minute presentation. That's no longer the case.
And I recognize that concern.
And so you may want to think about timing then.
What we witnessed, though, throughout the pandemic, when we were fully Zoom, we didn't have a hybrid. I mean, we were fully Zoom, and people could call in. We didn't see being inundated with calls from all over the country. So
Right.
I wouldn't be so concerned about that, although, you know, certainly situations evolve and change. So I see our deputy city manager has gotten up. Do you have some input to add?
I just wanted to share some of the things that staff had discussed related to this topic, and Ann can back me up. Our clerk, supposed to use titles.
all right.
one of the things that we discussed was, you look at this room right now, and there are people that are interested in the topics that are being discussed here. And so they've come, they're prepared, they've reviewed information. It takes some preparation to stand up here in front of people and speak your mind about whatever the topic is. It's really easy to sit on your couch and watch TV and, call in and say, well, I think Leanne should be fired. And that doesn't take any preparation. That doesn't take any work on their part to review the agenda. And so, that's kind of an extreme example. We just want everybody to be cognizant that there could be some time used at our meetings for things that aren't really all that productive. Not that it couldn't be now. It's just that I think it's kind of unlikely that someone would come and sit through an entire meeting just to stand up and say, I think Leanne should be fired. Something to be considered.
And I would like to, if I could, just jump in for a second and just remind, because we can make anything happen. Overall, we can make anything you want happen. So if this board decides that's the direction you want to do, we'll certainly make it work. But the clunkiness of, you remember, like, turn down the sound, can you hear me? All of, it was not as smooth and professional, I think, as what we have right now. We had a lot of like background noise. We had some words that were used that shouldn't have been used, that were aired live, because we just, so I just want to remind, because it's easy to forget some of those things, that we would be kind of coming back to as well, where it's just not going to be so smooth.
I guess the follow-up on both of those, while we have not had the problem, I have certainly heard and participated when others were running meetings virtual, that they get hijacked with horribly inappropriate, and you end up, and the one I was on in particular, they ended up just canceling the whole meeting. It was, I can't get rid of whoever's hijacked my meeting, so we're done. That doesn't happen here.
Not yet.
And if I could too, I just have one comment that's really more, it's more staff focused. And I think maybe we take for granted that probably have 10 or 12 department division heads that come to these meetings. And for them to come to a 2-hour meeting or a 3-hour meeting once in a while is one thing. But typically when you have that many folks and they come and they sit through a meeting that ends up going 5 hours, that maybe is all, half of it's public comment or something like that. Not to say that's not good for them to hear it, but eventually that does come home to roost, right? If that happens 3 times a month, these folks are probably flexing their time later in the week and taking a different day off and not getting work done at the office because they spent it kind of sitting here, listening to those people that might be calling in and saying the things that Leanne has to say. And I think we need to talk. That's one thing when you're like, hey, it's just a city manager, he's here doing it. But if you've got 10 people and they all make somewhere close to 6 figures and they all earn an extra 2 days off a month from sitting through long meetings that maybe aren't, that have a lot of topics that are less relevant to them. I mean, it is at some point it's costing us a certain amount of efficiency and really a certain amount of money. When you think about unused vacation time being cashed in and and things like that, there is absolutely a cost to it, and we don't see it and think about it. But I think Ken Grant sees it every March when people are cashing in unused time and they're going, well, I didn't have to take, like the last 5 times I took work off, I was at a 10-hour city commission meeting for that month, so I didn't take a vacation day. I just took I took a flex day. So I mean, that might not be the only reason why you would consider this, but if you make these meetings so long, and you continue to want to have to make sure, director of strategic initiatives here and the deputy manager, the manager, and all those folks are here to answer your questions. But then for the most part, they're just sitting and observing public comment. It will impact their ability to do the things you really want them to do Monday through Friday otherwise.
Thank you for all that input. With regard to that last point, I would suggest, one, I haven't experienced those exceptionally long meetings this year thus far, fortunately, and we've had a good amount of public comment already. I would also suggest that if that would be up to a management matter, if management would like to relieve our department heads from being here during public comment, and for them to go home so that we're not dealing with those financial issues that you were speaking of, whereas the commissioners can still receive that comment from the public, and our manager can receive that as well, and our clerk can receive that. So we're still receiving it while alleviating that financial concern of yours, which is valid.
Except the big chunk of them that are at the start of the meeting won't. You won't be able to avoid that unless you're going to release them at the start of the meeting.
Oh, you're talking about our on agenda items.
Right.
So, what's your evaluation? You've spoken with a member of the Grand Haven City Council. What has been their experience in terms of allowing phone calls in for public comment?
It doesn't sound like they have received a lot of calls yet. From what I remember in the conversation, they only allow calling in for their city commission or their council meetings. I don't think they do it for all the other meetings. They did have to buy some special equipment because they needed like a camera and a microphone and maybe not a camera, a microphone and a special, like a separate phone just for the conference room and a special phone line just for calling in. So right now they don't have a lot of experience yet because just not a lot of people have called in. And then I have some information to share too about things that we've discussed of other ways that we can accommodate if you want to hear those.
Yeah, sure.
The attorney mentioned some of them. We did have somebody who requested to leave a voicemail and have that played, and I feel like that went pretty well. We are a little bit hesitant to have video just for the, what could get displayed that maybe people don't want to see. And then we did talk about people being able to send in written comments that we could read aloud if they give them the option to have it read aloud, because there's something to be said for the rest of the public to hear it rather than just the commissioners receiving that written information. So Anne reminded me if there was something else that we discussed, but those are the three that
Those were the big
stick
ones,
in my
right?
head.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there an opportunity, and this is for staff and Deputy Manager Mike Saul, I guess. Is there an opportunity for us to identify, and council please weigh in, baby steps that we can take and master as we work towards a goal, if we decide that to be the goal, of an integrated platform for communication and interaction? So if we're talking specifically about ADA compliance and how we can work with our neighbors who are differently abled, is there a chance for us to work with a local agency like Disability Connect to help to lay out a process of how we connect specifically with the population that they serve, that they get to be a part of, so that they can help us identify the who, the how, the when, the where, and the why, to be able to serve them in a more integrated way. And then if we're going to, that allows us to take not the whole elephant and kind of perfect that part there. Or if we were to choose a different entity and work with, let's say, Age Well and or Senior Resources to talk about how we can better engage with senior citizens that are our neighbors to get them to be a part of these meetings. So that way it's not just here, multi-stream communication, go. And we get the opportunity to really sort of acquaint ourselves with the beast that we've yet to know. And so I don't know if there is something there, John, Mr. Schreier, that we could do, but I would be interested in hearing staff's feedback on what a timeline like that would look like, or where they think we should start based on the people that reach out to us daily through the offices, right? Because people who can't get a hold of me because they don't do the email gig are calling you,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
So you would have that frontline experience of knowing where our most important place to start is, and I say that we start there
Right.
and devise a simple plan that we try to take on. So we know if we actually have the capacity, because that's also a thing.
Right.
Maybe we don't have the capacity and we'll do it poorly, and we don't need to do anything else poorly, turns out. So I don't know, but I would really be open to hearing something like that, as long as we're not breaking any laws.
I know one step that we take when you speak about somebody who is not familiar with email as much or not comfortable with that, and they call our office and they're upset, is that I summarize it and I send it to the appropriate people. Sometimes it's the whole commission, sometimes it might be just the mayor, it could be the manager, whatever, and I share that information that way. But I always do make sure that it is passed on when it is a telephone
Right.
complaint, so all of you do have it. Is one way that we try to share. We also have, for people who are comfortable with computers, on our website, we have a form that you can fill out there that will actually say who you want it sent to, what office, or if it says other, all others come to me too, and then I disseminate like who that might be. If if it's something that maybe like parking stickers, I don't think are like specifically directed right now, so they just go to other because they don't know who that is, and then I do, and I just forward it to them. That's another way to get that information out, that we're able to assist people too. So those are some, I'm just letting you know some of the avenues that we currently take.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that it would be easier than eating the entire elephant.
And so what would that baby step be, Commissioner Ramsey?
Working with our staff.
Working with Disability Connect West Michigan, which is what I had said the first time, so that we could figure out a way to more easily engage the ADA needs of our neighbors. And because we have a strong relationship with them already, it's sort of created a safe space where we could go in there and speak to the elephant. I love an elephant analogy tonight. The elephant in the room, and say, hey, we know that there's an opportunity. We're going to mess this up. Before we do that, how do we get it straight? Mm-hmm. And they are always willing to work with and be a resource to any organization that's looking to better increase engagement. And so that, to me, would be a great place to start. And, the situations with being differently abled are also ones that are pretty hard mitigated. Like, if there's a hearing or a seeing or a thing, there's many things there. Whereas I know that some of my elderly neighbors can still yell at me through Ann, so they can still call. But I think that Disability Connect would be a great resource. And maybe I'm wrong. Fancy that. And we have another population as our neighbors that is more needy. Maybe Disability Connect can help us recognize that.
Indeed. We've referred, well, I shouldn't say maybe first alerted to this, but a member of Disability Network West Michigan contacted actually a month ago today, informing us of the Attorney General's opinion. And then we also heard from another disability advocate who was a resident of our community on this, and someone who engaged us years past of wanting to improve accessibility to our meetings. And so I'm wondering, in the month since we were alerted to this by the Disability Network, what have our conversations been with Disability Network of what they would like to see happen? Have we heard any follow-up from just that alerting of us, the Attorney General memo on this?
Quite honestly, I mean, as soon as that happened, we reached out to our city attorney for further clarification, because we quickly realized it wasn't quite as clear as what it made it sound, that there were some issues with the Attorney General's opinion versus how Mr. Schreier just explained to us. So really going through his guidance before we reached out to disability to see what we are allowed to do and what the ramifications are. I mean, can we open it up to just commission meetings, which would be great, but from everything that our city attorney has explained to us, we can't. So then we open it up to all meetings and what that looks like, because I think we have like 18 committees that meet on a regular basis.
Yes.
So it's like it's a large ask, and with staff bringing them in. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just like trying to explain the ramifications of, you are going to need additional staff, because it does take. When we were doing Zoom, I wasn't the only one sitting here because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that. It's next to impossible. It gets kind of crazy, a little stressful even as you're trying to push all the buttons, and then somebody's stuck out there and I can't get you off or whatever like that. And everybody, we've all had those looks and those laughs and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we absolutely need to be mindful of staff's capacity, and if it's not there, what we can do to adjust that. Commissioner Ramsey's definitely on point in that regard, amongst others. Would you find it too onerous on staff to have that make Zoom available upon request, a disability request, for our various different committees, boards, while looking at allowing phone calls into our televised meetings. So it wouldn't be routine that we'd have Zoom at every session of
Okay.
those various different committees and boards, but upon request that Zoom would be made available if there's someone that could not attend but wanted to view or otherwise participate in that meeting. Would that be, I guess, reflect on that. If you can't answer that right this moment, reflect on that, if that's a possibility, way to go.
I wasn't sure with Mr. Schreier if that was something that was allowed, because I kind of understood it was all or nothing. So help me with that.
It's going to be difficult to articulate why we can accommodate a disabled individual on this meeting, but not that.
The reason being, in my perspective, is that this meeting and our work session meetings are televised and live streamed on multiple different platforms.
Which we could
And
do.
so anyone's able to watch
Right.
and watch it that regard. Those other meetings, we would make it available upon request.
But the problem for the city is we have the technical ability. If we have the technical ability to do something for meetings A and B, we have the technical ability to do them for meetings C, D, and E. We have chosen not to. And that's fine for the non-disabled. For somebody who's disabled who says, I need a reasonable accommodation, here's my disability, here's why I can't come, here's why maybe phones don't work, maybe, whatever the disability is. For us to then say, yes, we have the technical ability to do it by Zoom, but we choose not to, thus I'm sorry we can't accommodate you, on your request. It's problematic.
I guess I'm not seeing. I understand where you're going in terms of it's not universal, but I guess I'm not understanding the difference between video is available to watch, and if we allow them to call in, they're able to have the audio for the commission meetings. And all the other meetings, if they want to participate, they can request Zoom access for that. And so on a case-by-case basis, we would allow Zoom access to those meetings.
Well, as to the
Because it's the equivalent access, just in different ways of getting access.
perhaps the problem is distinguishing if we're going to do something as a broad brush, we certainly can. What we do with a request from a disabled individual who cannot participate because of that disability is, I think, where we get the bigger problem of saying yes if you want to talk to one group, but no if you want to talk to a different group. As a broad brush, can we say, okay, anybody disabled or not disabled can call in, can participate on a virtual meeting because we're running city commission virtually? Absolutely. And we could say to somebody who is not disabled, I want to make a presentation to the Citizens Police Review Board. No, because we don't run that virtually. That's not a problem. The problem becomes, how do we say no to the disabled individual who wants to make a comment to the Police Review Board because we don't have the ability to do Zoom, but we do, because we run the city commission as Zoom. We may choose to run other bodies with Zoom.
I guess I'm not following that last part, because we would make Zoom available upon request in that regard.
For anything,
Yeah.
for any public body.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
For disabled only or for anyone?
That would go back to the staff capacity thing, I would think.
In playing devil's advocate, I would like to just mention that I could also see somebody just doing a blanket request, asking that all of them. I see that almost immediately. One person's going to send that and say, I would like all of them to be accessible to me under the ADA. And that's just something to think about too, that would not be unheard of.
I see Commissioner Ramsey we've already half an hour into this. We got a lot more items on here. I will just say my assessment is I'm hearing a lot of fears. Fear about how to move forward. And I really would like us to find a way to make our meetings more accessible while being cognizant of staff's limitations and capacity limitations. Be respectful of that. But Deputy City Manager Mike Zell, did you have something else to add before I
I
call on
was-
Commissioner Ramsey?
I was just going to say that we have to consider too that a lot of these meetings happen in rooms that don't accommodate Zoom. And so we would need some advance notice to be able to be sure that we could reschedule the meeting in a room that would accommodate it. So I'm not saying that it couldn't be done. We just have to have a decent amount of notice so that we could plan for that.
Okay, thank you. And well, good point. Commissioner, sorry, Commissioner Ramsey, Commissioner St. Clair had her hand up as well, and I just want to give her an opportunity to speak.
I just want to point out that Zoom is not an accommodation for many people. If you don't have internet or device to do it on, that's not an easy solution in my mind. It's not the same as sitting and watching on your television, which many people have access to. I know a large amount of the community does not have internet access, so Zoom would not be an accommodation for a lot of people. So just to throw that out there, muck it up a little more.
It
Sorry.
mucks it up a lot more, because if we were to move forward with televising every single meeting, that'd be a lot more costly.
Right.
On our part to do. And so, is there a middle ground perhaps? Or do we want to foot the bill? And that's the question for this commission to decide, if we want to foot that bill. And it's going to be a hefty one. But Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, no, I was. Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair. You're spot on. I was going to remind the bench that Zoom isn't the ADA answer to all of our problems, and that there's still barriers with access that are there. And to again, instead of belabor this here tonight, I would encourage staff to sit down with the mayor and figure out a list of questions that they have and opportunities that may be there, so that we can be a little bit more targeted as opposed to just a roundtable conversation of the what ifs.
Just concurring.
Commissioners, any additional input or questions? So, staff, have you gotten any indications or direction how to proceed?
Yes, I think we have a lot to consider. So we'll do that, and then we'll come back to you.
All right. I guess. Nope, we're good. Thank you. And thank you, legal counsel.
Good night.
All right. Next up, Social Sandbox Concert Series fundraiser request.
Good evening.
Good evening, Director Ekholm. You leading out on this?
Just really quickly, so yeah, for the last probably 2 months now or so, we've been working with Mr. Puffer, who is interested in scheduling a series of summer concert events at the corner of 2nd and Western at the Social Sandbox through his nonprofit organization. And so with that, I just wanted to allow him to give his presentation, take any questions from the commission, and I believe he intends to request some fundraising assistance. So I'll introduce Mr. Puffer. Hello,
Good evening. Can you give your name?
Terry Puffer.
All right. And you're
Did you
here
have the
with regard to
presentation?
Social Sandbox Concert Series fundraiser request. You want to speak about your event and your ask?
Yep, so I'm going to go through a full presentation. Ann has it here She's as well. So I represent a nonprofit Lakeshore Legacy Project. We're currently waiting. We filed all of our documents to receive 501c3 status with the state. So once that's finalized, we will be a full 501c3, taking donations, and of course, currently we're taking sponsorships for. So just to go over a couple things for the agenda, I'm going to go over the introduction, our team, which is the board members and then the committee members part of our team, rough idea of the 2022 events that we have planned this year, specifically the summer concert series, which is the reason we're having this meeting, the genres and artists, kind of explaining the diversity in not only the artists but also the genres of music to entertain anybody from Muskegon and outskirts. Specifically the new venue that is going to be the corner of 2nd and West Western. The many partnerships we're creating throughout this process, not only with the 501c3 on this event, but also further events, as I'll explain. The positive impacts that this will have on the community, and then the final summary. So Lakeshore Legacy Project aims to mitigate the income inequality divide in Western Michigan through immersive and community building events. In particular, we strive to offer people of all ages the chance to experience life-enriching events stigma-free. Basically what that means is with all the events and all the diversity we're going to be having with these concerts, anybody is going to be able to attend because all the concerts are free. Raising all the money through private and public funding through either asking you guys to match us on funds, which I'm going to get to, and then a ton of sponsorships from local community and small business owners alike. As I mentioned, my name's Terry Puffer. I'm the president of the nonprofit. My wife is the VP. Got Craig Person as the secretary, Miranda Clark as the treasurer, and Louisa Yonker as the fundraising director. That's our board, and then we've got the committee made up of 13 folks that you may recognize that have served on several boards in Muskegon, serve on many nonprofits alike. So with the team, we really expect to accomplish quite a bit on this program and several others in the future. Primary events for 2022, the concert series specifically for this. We're planning on a Halloween trunk or treat, and I put plus there because we're hoping to do also a haunted house downtown. And keep in mind, everything is free to the community. We're going to do an infrastructure event, which I'm going to kind of keep a secret until I get it all figured out. But it will also be free for the community. And then, of course, if you guys remember the downtown lights glow that I did last year, this is also going to be kind of the 2.0 version of it. We're going to continue. So just to recap, the summer concert series is 9 weeks from June 4th to July 30th. The plan is to host the events from 12 p.m. to 10:15 p.m. I talked to Cindy Larson specifically about ending at 10 and then giving us an encore event that ends at 10:15 later. It's going to be consistent of 10 concerts because the We Discover Festival will be here on July 1st and 2nd. And we obviously don't want to waste that space and leave that stage empty for the first if we've got 36 to 50,000 people down. All 10 days will be made up of different genres of music, as I mentioned. It's highly diverse in artists, regional and local. The new venue build out, I'll kind of cover that here in a second. Traffic expected just from these events, if we have nothing else going on downtown, will be approximately 4,000 to 5,000 people enjoying the downtown district. Additional daytime entertainment, because they are family friendly, will include face painters, magicians, clowns, anything else to keep the kids engaged and active during the day, included with the music, of course. Infrastructure pieces that we're looking to include are portable restrooms, security additional for not only the bands, but also the event, police, food trucks. I've recently partnered with a car show that's going to be going on down at Hot Rod Harley that same weekend. So I'm working with them to actually pair that car show with our event as well on July 2nd. Partnerships, I'll kind of go over into the multiple nonprofits that we're working with, as well as the sponsors that we've already gathered. And then again, private and public funding, we've already got $55,000 committed to this event alone. And then, of course, we're requesting the city to match funds dollar for dollar. So the genres and artists, so we've got reggae, classic rock, country and blues, Motown, jazz and R&B, hip-hop, EDM, funk and jam music, acoustic indie, 80s, 90s pop, and then, of course, rock. A couple of the bands that you may not heard of, the Reese Brothers, Jake Kershaw, Big Daddy Fox, Chad Flores, the Indica Reggae Band, Shannon Williams, Flexadecibel, Desmond Jones, Will Evans, Full House, Shallow Side, and Hollywood Swingin'. And I just included a slide on here of the Social Sandbox venue, which I'm working with them on this, just understanding what it's going to consist of, so we're on the same page. But I do not have any details about how the structure is going to be put up or anything like that. That would be a question for the property owners, if you guys have it. Partnerships. So one of our title sponsorships is Van Dyke Mortgage. One of our primary sponsors is West Michigan Canine. One of our other partnerships is Lighthouse for Veterans. They're the ones that are actually hosting the car show at Hot Rod Harley. So generally what they do is they charge for parking. What I've done is, again, in the spirit of saying everything is free at one of our events, I went ahead and bought their parking. So we have 500 spots of parking that will be free for July 2nd as well. Taking Back Muskegon, we're partnering on the week of Juneteenth, which the events will take place on the 25th, to do a event there. I believe it's Motown, Jazz, and R&B will be that week for Juneteenth. Cumulus Radio, they've already donated roughly $18,000 in radio play for this spot, so they're fully committed as well. And then, of course, you guys, needing the commitment from you guys to also be able to partner and make this an amazing event. So some of the positive impacts, obviously, is diversity. Not only supporting the different styles and genres of music, but also different artists, both local and regional, who would not normally be in the area. So if we have somebody from Lansing, they're going to bring the group from Lansing here. Inclusion, again, all the events are free, so anybody can come regardless of income. We're not charging VIP, we're not selling alcohol, we're not doing any of that. Everything is free at our event. With all the multiple events going on downtown Muskegon already, this will only accentuate the corridor, growing the common events already present and all the small businesses that operate. And then I also specify again, we're not fencing the space in, so we're not selling alcohol. It's going to benefit the local businesses around us. And again, just kind of summarize, we're looking to partner with you guys on sponsorship donated funds, with the City of Muskegon creating a truly amazing free public event that promotes diversity, inclusion, and unification for our 9 weeks and 10 concert series event this summer. Question?
Thank you, Mr. Puffer. Appreciate your ongoing efforts and contributions towards the vibrancy of our downtown.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hood.
Yes, Mr. Puffer, I just would like to thank you for your open-mindedness when it comes to the genre. Because I know at one time you had to have worked something out because you said you didn't want hip hop or rap.
It wasn't that I didn't want it. The insurance,
yeah.
the insurance company was giving us a hard time, so I had to work towards that,
Right.
which they allowed us to do hip hop. They were adamantly against rap,
Right.
so they wouldn't cover us otherwise. So
Right,
yes,
'cause, yeah, I knew that that the insurance company was telling
Yes.
you couldn't have those two, and then I was like, I knew some of the people that you were talking with and that you had conversation with, and I just put my input with them that I thought that hip hop would be an inviting genre. Rap, I can understand some rap is different type of rap, and some can be not what you want out there with kids and stuff. But I'm really appreciative of your willing to work on your genre and to add that extra, the hip hop in there, along with Motown, jazz, rhythm and blues. I think that just about gets it. Thank you.
Commissioners? Any other question? Commissioner Gorman?
Thanks for coming, Mr. Puffer. I guess my first question is just, could you share at the end of the season, if this happens, what does measurable success look like to the Lakeshore Legacy Project?
Measurable success, I guess, would be if, I'm going to talk to Frank or whoever is in charge of the traffic counter at that point, and figure out if it was a success. I mean, if we're bringing consistently 4,000 or 5,000 people downtown that wouldn't generally be there, I'm sure you guys have something from last year, and you guys can gauge the value. So if we're bringing an extra 4,000 or 5,000 people against that last year's number, I think that's a success.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do happen to have a tool of that.
I know that. I know that. That's what's going to help me.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Puffer, thank you for being here tonight. What a great presentation. I think that this sounds like a great idea, but I really have a lot of questions about the conversations that you've had with existing festivals and events and things that happen regularly, annually, downtown in that close corridor, known as Western. And not that I don't think that you've spoke to them, but what is their feedback and what do the neighbors think, especially with, the apartments and the condos next door and those that are more to come still? Where's everybody at with this?
So I can tell you, I haven't spoken to everybody. That's a task. So just about, I know you guys know that. So I've spoken to parties in the park. The initial thought was to partner on marketing and unify both events. They decided to go a different direction, so we were not going to go that route. That was initially the hope. They didn't have a problem, obviously, with us operating on Saturday because it didn't interfere with them. So I purposely didn't do anything on Friday because my goal is not to squish anybody else's project. I've said that a million times. It's to partner with other nonprofits and partner with other businesses. That's why, again, everything is free. I'm giving my time, my effort, and my energy to something I make $0 on. So I talked to a lot of the other nonprofits in the area. I've talked to Unruly. They do concert events, so I've worked out with them. I've talked to Matt Gongalski with Rad Dads as well. I'm about ready to put out something. Obviously, I wanted to get your guys' commitment first, but something to all the local businesses so they aren't booking bands over top of us as well. Because obviously I don't want them to waste their money. Generally, when this thing ends at 10 o'clock, the goal was have a late show. Have us push everybody to your places and keep them downtown till midnight. So the conversations that I've had have been very positive across the board. I've even had local people that live downtown are super excited about having the music down there. And Cindy knows as well, ending at 10 is a big plus for anybody who lives downtown. So we certainly agreed to that.
Thank you, Mr. Puffer. Do you have any follow-up, Commissioner Ramsey?
I don't think so.
Commissioner German?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor German.
Thank you, Mayor. How you doing, Ms. Puffer?
Good, yourself?
Not bad. I like the ideal. We definitely need that type of performing arts downtown, and to engage the community. And your mission is definitely one that I see importance for. I'm just curious, though, a genre of music that I don't see, and if you explored it or not, is gospel. And why is that?
There's a lot of genres, there's hundreds.
Yeah.
It's tough to pick. I mean, we took a vote, not on the genre, but everybody to kind of say, hey, who do you want to see here? So I didn't receive one gospel request, and so we plugged away at what was most popular based on whoever commented. And when we did that, I boosted a post and said, hey, tag your favorite local artist. So I did put money into trying to generate some sort of.
Right. Yeah, I was just surprised not to see that being one of the, biggest, music industries.
I know they have the Unity Festival. Again, I know there's a lot of other festivals, but nobody was brought up. The only one thing I didn't throw, several $1,000s at it. I definitely threw a couple $100 at it.
Yeah. Just curious. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Puffer, I know that you mentioned parties in the park. So like PIP, they have an annual schedule that they adhere to every year.
Sure.
Is the Social Sandbox concert series also going to have a recurring schedule every year so that it becomes a part of the list of events that happen downtown annually?
Very
Will those
hopeful.
dates change?
Very helpful. No, we would want it to be this way, but again, that's a conversation I have to have with the venue.
Okay. And then my question after that is, that's only, how many concerts is that, Terry?
It's 10 concerts, 9 weeks.
10 concerts, 9 weeks. So then after those 9 weeks, or any other time when it's not being, when it's not meeting its full destiny as a stage, how does this become a public space? At Hackley Park, we do our best to make that available to many, many, many different agencies, organizations, and opportunities for our neighbors. How does the social sandbox become then a public space?
I wish I could
for
answer that.
use after?
Sure. It's not my space. I don't have an answer.
So, do you have a follow-up, Commissioner Ramsey?
Not off the top of my head.
All right. So you mentioned in your presentation towards the end. Oh, do you have something to add?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it probably function as a public space similarly to what you saw happen over the last year, right? People using it as a social district amenity, probably would be my guess.
Yeah, but I almost said my intentions are more intentional. Unfortunately, that's the best wording I have, y'all. I gave it all last week. So my question is, so that's great, Frank. I completely support that, and seeing people down there is always awesome. Love that. How does it become a public space for our community to use? How do they schedule it? So, and I don't expect you to answer this right now, Terry. But I mean, as we move forward, we need to look at if we're really creating a public space here that's, hot and popping on a Saturday night. That's really cool. But what about an organization like the Poppin' Project who needs to use it for a recital concert in the middle of a summer for rehearsal for someone who's doing something somewhere else? There are a million different purposes it could serve, and I just want to know how, if this is going to be a truly community space that is wonderful on Saturday nights, how does that come to fruition on a Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock? I just think there's a great opportunity there, and that's not a slight to anyone doing these things.
Yeah, I can tell you again, I wouldn't be able to answer that now or even later. Jake may have better answers because he's working with
Great.
development.
Well, look at your econs.
Wasn't sure if you were looking at me. Yeah.
He was asking for backup.
Well, yeah, I think so. The stage concept that was in this presentation has been submitted to for planning commission consideration, and that's this coming Thursday. I believe it's a departure from the existing zoning, so they have filled out a zoning application requesting a departure, be allowed to construct that stage on that lot. So Thursday would be a good opportunity for any questions to be asked. So I would encourage you, if you're not one of the representatives on the planning commission, to email the commissioners that are, email the chair, or email us and we can ask them during that public hearing. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely not, but it tells me to show up to a meeting on Thursday, so
Yeah.
I reckon I'll take it.
There you go.
4 o'clock, this room.
Perfect.
Thursday.
Thank you, thank you, Director Ekholm.
And our city manager also serves on that planning commission, so you can submit
get him,
your
Frank.
questions to
Yeah.
to Mr.
Okay.
Peterson.
Yeah,
Yeah, another follow-up?
yeah, the follow-up is, so I love a shipping container. I love a shipping container. Put that in the notes. But this seems to be a really big, I'm not an architect, Terry, let's not pretend.
Yep.
This seems to be a really big stage for not a big parcel of property. What's the percentage that this stage takes up of the sand lot?
Can't ask me.
You're not an architect either, right?
I'm not the guy who's putting it all together.
Well, dang it.
I want to delineate the fact that I am just the entertainment side. I don't have anything to do with the build out of this slot.
Well, where's this guy with the build out? Who's he? Who's them?
Jake would know.
Okay. I see Cindy Larson. I see Steve Olson out there. I see Jake. I see David. Somebody's got an answer in that corner.
Good evening again. Yeah, so the stage has been proposed by it's DMDC, Downtown Muskegon Development Corporation's property. Specifically, the member running point on it is Pete Johnson, and he is utilizing Concept Design Studio as the architect. Those are the folks that have been submitting the application and meeting with city staff to get it on the planning commission agenda.
Great. Thank you, Director Ekholm. Sounds like I need to talk to DMDC.
So is the concert series predicated on the approval of that venue? Or would the concert series proceed as the sandbox exists presently with the
All right.
temporary
It would
stage.
it would still move forward. It just means I have more cost in developing a stage if that does not happen.
Commissioner St. Clair?
So I have a few questions. Currently, the social sandbox is not accessible. It is my understanding that we could not fund something that is not accessible. So is there a plan to build real accessibility into the setting
Yes,
before that?
Yes.
Whether this happens or not?
correct.
And
Yes.
let me clarify, by real accessibility, I don't mean a table on the sidewalk with a handicap seat. I mean, like somebody can sit in front of the stage and participate.
Yes.
And then my other question, to name the elephant in the room.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the price tag on this? If you're asking us to match, what are you asking us to match?
So dollar for dollar. So right now I've already
Right.
got 55,000 raised. My goal and my budget would be 200,000.
So you're asking for us to approve around $200,000.
100,000.
Okay.
Yep. I raise 100. You guys match 100.
Okay. And then I guess my next question is probably not for you because you probably don't have the answer, but
Okay.
I understand that government money is very complicated and there are a lot of rules around what we can use for different purposes. Is this an allowable expense, and if so, from what?
So I'm not sure exactly from where we would decide to take it from. There's probably a number of pots, and probably an argument could be made that that ARPA dollars are a reasonable use because we're assisting tourism and and recovery of the downtown and things like that with something like this. My guess would be we'd be looking at one of the economic development funds most likely to support this. Or potentially one of the TIFs, although I would presume that the DDA probably does not have the resources to do it. Yeah, that's a good question. I think we could find the dollars to do it, and it would. If I had to pick a fund, it would be probably the economic development fund.
Okay.
If it was my choice,
I have one more question.
although I will not be here.
Okay.
It's probably more like something that gets budgeted next fiscal year. Is
Okay.
what it sounds like.
All right, so one final question. If we are not able to see a way through to fund this at the level, either at all or at the level that you are asking, do you have a plan B?
Yes, I do have a plan B. Raise more money.
Perfect.
Support.
Thank you.
So the total cost that you're targeting at $200,000, that includes the cost to build out this new venue?
Does not.
That's just for the programming.
That's just for the 10 concerts, 10 weeks.
Terry, is the traffic expected the 4,000 to 5,000 attending? Is that per concert
event.
you're hosting? Okay.
Per event, correct.
Can you talk about the thought process between having music from 12 p.m. to 10:15 p.m.?
From what, I'm sorry?
From 12 p.m. to 10:15. How you guys came to those hours?
Just to make it more family friendly. I mean, it's Saturday, everybody's out and about anyway. I don't want it just to be an evening event. That's why I'm trying to get clowns, magicians, and all these other things. Trying to get street performers, not for music, of course, because there'll already be music there. So it's just more family friendly. I'm trying to get everybody involved, and some people are working late on Saturday. Some people are out early. So just to give more of a variety, again, just be more open to the.
Commissioner Emery.
Sorry. On what premise are you setting your not-for-profit on? When
do you mean?
you
I'm
said
sorry.
you applied for a not-for-profit?
Yeah, so basically with the not-for-profit status, you have to submit all these documents. We have the EIN, we have everything. We've submitted it already to the state. In order to get turned down, it takes quite a bit. We just have to wait for that to develop. Sometimes it could take 6 months. So it's just a process. But the second we are approved, we can backdate donations, we can backdate everything. So right now we haven't collected any donations. It's been all sponsorships at this point.
So
at the
you've
50.
submitted it to the state or the Fed?
To the state, yep. Well, my lawyer submitted it. Wherever he submits that stuff.
I hope to the Fed.
Yeah, wherever that goes, he's taking care of it.
Yeah, okay. I just want, because for a not-for-profit, it's not that you're not making a profit, because not-for-profits also make a profit. They just don't have to pay taxes on
Yeah,
it.
just to put your mind at ease, there's nobody on our board, nobody on the council, nobody makes anything. We get zero. There's nobody on our payroll at all. Every dollar will be accounted for and associated with some sort of payment for services rendered. Everything.
Okay. Is one of the purposes, I saw that you have local, you intend on, I know Chad Flores, local genres and artists, is that to bring attention to them also?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to high school kids at this point, talking to schools, trying to get high school kids. Obviously, we want them to be talented. We don't want to waste anybody's time and have it be a flop. But so we're trying to get high school kids out there. We're trying to get local artists to be able to do something. I know specifically Chad Flores was talking about trying to hold his opening first event, and what a place to do it on a stage like this. So we're happy to help him do so.
Okay, because we have parties in the park, which is free.
Correct. Yep.
What sets you apart from them and makes you different?
We don't sell anything.
Yeah,
we don't fence in, and we don't sell anything. We don't sell beer there. Everything is absolutely free. The beer is not free there.
When you say everything is free, so you're gonna have
Face painting's free.
Okay.
Magician's free.
Are you gonna have
parking's free?
sodas, drinks for free, snacks for free?
Well, I mean, again, if we get money from you guys, absolutely. But right now, that's why I got this buffer. I'm budgeting 200, assuming we get some money from you guys. If we don't, I have to slim my budget. I have to raise more, and I can't offer waters and sodas. So it's this. I'm up in the air. It's a moving target at this point until I get all the commitment.
Yeah, I'm not expecting all of that for free.
Sure.
But,
Well, I mean, that's the intent.
Parties in the park is the beer and the pop and
Totally get it.
Cost you,
Mhm.
but it's also for a good cause always.
Yeah.
But the band itself, the music is free to anybody who
Sure.
walks into it.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm talking about. What sets you apart? I know that the businesses downtown will benefit from this because those hopefully 4,000 people that are there will go into those businesses and purchase a meal or a drink.
I think the time set us apart as well. I mean, they're not open at noon. There's no hit against Parties in Park. There's just different times. Saturday is wide open. That's why they don't open early, is because Fridays, people are working Fridays. So I understand that this is a more all weekend, all Saturday event for kids, everybody to come in there. Because we don't serve alcohol, kids will be wandering everywhere. That's what we want.
Mr. Manager?
And plus, we do get regional acts as well. I know Parties in Park have had some regional acts, but I mean, we're talking people we're spending some decent money on to come out and give an amazing show. To really, culturally, again, reggae, there's Motown, there's a lot of culture and everything that we're trying to do. And there's not a ton of people around here that do that. So I have to reach out to Lansing, got to reach out to Detroit. So we're bringing these really cool acts to the area, which again is not common.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to point out the one thing that probably sets it apart is its location in the social district. So the idea that all of the restaurants benefit essentially the same. Proximity probably helps for some of them more than others, but at Parties in the Park and stuff like that, the only stuff being sold in there are the things that are being sold in there. There's nothing that you couldn't bring one in from Smash, or something like that. You couldn't bring one in from Unruly, but at this one you'll be able to. So you'll be able to make a conscious decision to support Legends or support any one of the businesses and bring it right into the facility. And I think that goes to another question about funding, right? So every time one of those drinks is bought, I think we keep 75 cents. 75 cents, is that right? 75 cents. So the more events like this that happen, the more opportunities there are for the social district to generate 75 cents. And I would love to be able to tell you, if they're successful enough, then the social district revenue becomes almost enough to pay for the things that we're committing to it. But there's no way to tell. and we don't want to judge success on alcohol sales, right? Because we want it to be family friendly.
Right.
But in all these events, like it seems like the number one, there's two big pots of money that make these events happen: alcohol sales and sponsorships. All the other stuff is really like barely pays for itself or is free. And so the idea that the alcohol sales can come from everybody can benefit the event, and then folks like us or Van Dyke Mortgage or whomever would decide to be to decide to donate or invest the money to make the event happen.
Thank you, Ms. Manager. Commissioner Emery.
How are you anticipating to pay for the stage, the building of this?
That's all part of the money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all built in.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I've got a pretty formal budget I'm working from right now. So obviously it flexes as we move, so.
I'll clarify because I think you misunderstood the question.
Sure.
The DMDC is privately raising money to build
you're talking about that
to
stage,
build the
yeah.
facility separately, regardless of what happens here. It's an amenity that they are trying to build.
Okay.
I think what he meant is like the sound and things like that are going on
Yes,
the stage for every event.
correct. Yeah, we have somebody hired for the sound and all that, but yeah, again, we're not doing anything with the
Yeah,
stage,
you're
not doing anything with the property.
Right, Frank, thank you.
Yeah.
They're just going to use it.
The only time I would is if that didn't happen and I would have to build something else.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, forgive me, Terry, for not picking this up sooner until Commissioner Gorman mentioned it. So we're talking about concerts from 12 p.m. to 10:15 p.m., which explains the ticket price of $20,000 for a Saturday. But it also gives me concern about a previous question I had. So during those times, we have events like the Lakeshore Art Festival, Rebel Road, and then Taste of Muskegon that are happening concurrently.
Yeah.
So obviously Taste is over in the corner at Hackley Park, but for LA, Lakeshore Art Festival, from here to known as LAF, and Rebel Road are happening right there.
Absolutely. That's the point. So we want more people to come to the area. I'm not trying to stick people here. I'm trying to attract people to the space. And if there's another event going on, that's exactly what I want. I want more people to see these artists. I want more people to drive by. I want more people to stop and stop in and see somebody. That is exactly the point. We don't sell anything. There's no benefit for somebody to come and sit in the area and drink beer. For me, it's benefit for the community. It's benefit for the small businesses. That's exactly what I want.
Oh, I absolutely get it. My question is, have you ever met Carla Flanders?
Who's that?
You're gonna meet her now. Don't you worry, Terry.
All right. What's her name? Hold on.
Carla Flanders. She runs Lakeshore Art Festival.
And one of the things is, I don't know if anybody knows, but when for our special events, when a special event is offered, they have exclusive rights 1,000 feet around it. So unless that event like authorizes you might have to massage some of your dates, just
Sure.
to let you know. Just like, and you're right.
Yeah.
You might as well. That June 25th will not work. That's already like taken. That's Art Festival, and that is already taken. They use that whole
for
area
road closures, you're saying?
for everything. You can't even be in that footprint. Like it's already taken. The whole area is
Yeah.
taken. Like 1,000 feet around the perimeter, even. So there's just some massaging that's going to have to be done. On the dates.
Okay.
So Terry, like I said
so
earlier,
Let me ask this. Yeah, that would impact our Juneteenth event.
That's
which
what I
was-
wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
That's a big deal.
But you do have the week before, which is the Juneteenth. That is actually falls on.
So-
That could be a possibility.
Right.
I believe that's June 18th.
Yeah,
Yep.
the hurdle that I already have, and so I'm gonna have to figure this out, is I've got bands booked for every single weekend at this.
Yeah. That's the thing. There's other events. There's at least 3 events on those dates that I can
Sure.
think of just
Yep.
off my head that you will not be able to use. So working with staff to kind of figure those out.
And if I work with the companies and get an okay from them, I should be fine, right?
Well, yeah,
Perfect.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
you knew about that because
I'll-
that June 25th one really stood out to me.
I will figure it out.
Okay.
Permit holder. Yeah,
Yes,
that's what a permit
I
holder
will. Yes, I will
could give
figure
you
it out.
approval to operate
Sure.
within their exclusivity zone.
Okay.
If it doesn't work out June 25th for your event, perhaps I suggest as an alternative partnering with our neighbors in Muskegon Heights. They're putting on a Juneteenth event at Moon Lake Park.
Yes.
They're going to be having fireworks and music and food, and so there may be an opportunity for your organization, us as a city,
Yeah.
to partner with our neighbors in Muskegon Heights on that event as well. Commissioner Ramsey, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I would just like to finish my comment. Terry, I would like to invite you to reach out to our city clerk and ask her for some contact information for anyone that might have something going on downtown during those days.
Okay.
Because those are, again, I love this idea. I support this. I think this is great. But when it comes down to voting to give you dollars, I've got to make sure that they're not going to come burn my house down.
Sure.
So I'm going to need to see something in paper that says, I, Carla Flanders, sorry, Carla, says this is okay. I worked with her for years on the Lakeshore Art Festival board, and she's amazing. But so I would really start there for
Okay.
those dates that are going to overlap, because obviously we're going to want to get that massaged, as the clerk called it, before anything happens.
So let me ask this. So let's just say I have to move the location of the events. I mean, that shouldn't stop you guys from voting. My hope is that we would have a vote tomorrow, regardless of where I have to have this. I mean, I've got bands booked. I will figure it out. So if it's not at that space, I will figure it out.
Yeah.
I just don't want that to be a hurdle on saying yes or no.
I love the chutzpah.
Commissioners, any other questions or input at this time?
I have a question
Norman?
for staff. This is my concern. And like Commissioner Rams, I think your guys' ambition, thank you to the board for coming, it's incredible. And as someone who has been involved in large scale events in the city, what we just saw happen is kind of the gig. It happened. Like, it's all festivals, events, getting to know each other, and I know you guys will get there. It's just a really incredibly ambitious first season. So, which gives me pause, just as, again, like we're saying, working out the kinks. My concern is if we go to a vote, is there a precedent for the city straight up sponsoring events? And the concern that would bring to a lot of other longstanding events in our community, coming then with requests for sponsorship. So I guess that's my first question. Have we done this before?
I would say, we put on events. Right? So, I would say that that's not outrageous to say that we would. I would just look at, the one thing I would say is look at maybe what might be different or not different. So the idea is like we put on the art festival, right? But it's the free part of it, right?
I do want to point out that the city attorney did make us go through the DDA to do all of this. Now we're not allowed to do it out of general funds, and that was, so all of our events have been switched over to DDA, and that's who I have to get permission from. So.
But I guess I look back to the free or not free aspect of it. So the idea that somebody might be putting on an event at Hackley or Heritage Landing that's got a $5 or $10 admission fee, I don't think that we should really worry too much that they're saying, hey, wait a minute, you sponsored a free concert series downtown. I think that they're pretty different, but I think you probably should at least consider that other folks might come and say, well, if you gave me enough money, mine could be free too.
Right. Okay.
Good question.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
And I'll say too, I think last year's We Discover Fest was probably maybe a first kind of dabble into this, where pretty much the event people put it on with no way to recoup the money, and they made 100% free for the folks that were there. And absent a bunch of sponsorships, which they were lucky to get, and a lot of which were and were not from Muskegon, they probably wouldn't have done. They probably would have chosen not to do that festival again this year, because there just wasn't a way to, even with 40-some thousand people downtown at it. We know the restaurants monetized it. We know the bars monetized it. We know like vendors monetized it. But the guy that put on the event, he didn't. He's probably the same way as Terry right now, saying, "Oh, it was just a good thing to do in the community. It didn't make him any money." But it did show that people will come down and enjoy, and the social district will work, and all those things, and you can make an event happen with the right amount of sponsorships and social district, without having to put a fence up and put it in a parking lot, or block it off and charge people to get in.
I guess I would just say, whatever happens moving forward, I really hope you're feeling more positivity from the bench, because this is exciting. However, just as a commissioner, knowing this is a fiduciary decision, I have to look at this as, is it a wise investment for the city? what I know will help me make a decision moving forward is how it performs this season. So I just want to say, whatever happens as you move forward, keep in mind those measurable objectives that you can come back to us and say, here's how we had a successful season, whatever that means. So if there is opportunity in the future, we can make a smart decision as commissioners for sponsorship opportunities.
Love it. Data-driven decision making. Commissioners, any other input or questions at this time? No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Puffer. So, I love the social sandbox. I love the vibrancy that it's brought to our downtown. I appreciate your organization's efforts to expand and continue that going forward with this concert series and having family-friendly fun throughout downtown. In terms of matching up to $100,000, I could not support that from our general fund. And it sounds like may not even be able to legally provide that support from our general fund, in which case we'd have to get confirmation or clarity. And that's why we've had some of our events go through the Downtown Development Authority, such as the Lakeshore Art Festival and Taste of Muskegon. That's the appropriate route. And so if the DDA wants to provide support or matching, I'd all for that. Or our Downtown Business Improvement District, all for that. Or using some of the resources from our social district that we've collected from the selling of those cups, all for that. So if you can piece together some of those resources to provide support, I can get behind that. But in terms of using our general fund dollars, that I have serious hesitancy to do so,
Sure.
given the significant amount of other needs throughout our city and no scarcity of resources. So I support you, just not with general fund dollars.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, for me, I don't know where you guys would get it from. So, for me to specify general fund or ABC fund, that's not what I do. So, however we can get it, that would be appreciated.
I would also say that I'm not keen on using our economic development fund for this activity. I'm not sure the position of that fund right now in terms of what is unrestricted in that fund presently, but I know in the past, I know it's tied up actually in that property that you're on. I'd love to get that money back. It's in portion of that property. I'd love to get that money back to replenish our economic development fund so that we can use it for its intent, which is support entrepreneurship with a special emphasis on women and minority entrepreneurship in our city. And so I really would like to replenish that fund. But that's tangential, I suppose. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Mr.
Appreciate it.
Puffer.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for coming.
And team.
Yes.
Yes, and team. So, Mr. Manager, since this is on our agenda tomorrow, under consent agenda, it's on the consent agenda, but there's no dollar amount cap on there. It just says, will you match dollar for dollar? I guess Director Ekholm, perhaps, you're better positioned to answer this. How are we proceeding tomorrow then, based upon what you've heard tonight, and given how it's presented in the general session agenda tomorrow?
Sure. So I would agree and corroborate with what the clerk said. I don't believe any general fund could be used for these fundraising assistance, so it would have to be a capital fund. Now that can be at the designation with the advice of the city attorney. I know the DDA doesn't have the resources to fund that level of fundraising, but I think it's also a possibility to partner with the DDA. So through the Public Act 57, the recodified TIF Act, the general fund can make a loan to the DDA, and the DDA can pay it back. So there are options, I believe. But I want to run those through the city attorney to make sure that I'm not mistaken. So now the reason that there was no amount placed is, well, in working with the group to kind of figure out the logistics of the concert series and address some of the city's concerns, the staff concerns, we knew the amount, but the letter didn't have a specific amount, and we weren't necessarily recommending that full amount from a staffing perspective. It's not really for us to recommend, especially with it being somewhat nebulous which funds would be eligible uses. And we talked about that with Mr. Puffer almost from the onset, that we're not even sure we can use most monies for this. So that's something that we need to discuss and get some input from the commission on which direction they'd want to see us go. So that's why I wanted to put it on a work session.
So have you received the inputs sufficient enough to inform how you're going to proceed?
Tomorrow with a recommendation?
Yes.
Or-
Do you want to keep this on tomorrow's agenda, or do you think it necessary to delay it for 2 weeks while you get this clarity from legal counsel as to, and perhaps speak with our finance director? I see him nodding his head over there. As to how this is actually going to be funded, would it be more prudent to delay this until our March 22nd meeting at the earliest for a formal vote on the request?
I think as long as it doesn't provide any undue trepidation to the folks over at the concert series, then I think I'd be more comfortable with that. Now, if they need some sort of answer tomorrow, I would argue that they probably just have to be prepared to have a less favorable answer if we're rushed into making a decision. So I would argue that I think I'll see the city attorney tomorrow. I can investigate with him and the finance director as to what would be eligible, and then we can go from there. But so I don't know that I would advise pulling it, because we will all be able to work on it somewhat tomorrow. But I'm not confident in an amount or a fund as of now for a recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ricom. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, I would just like you to ask Terry and team if pushing it out 2 weeks is going to sink your battleship, or is that something that we have playroom with?
It won't. Obviously, having the commitment from you guys would mean a lot in us moving forward with the rest of the bookings that we need to do for bands. The longer we wait, the less bands are available. That's obviously where we're at. So, but if it's going to be less favorable for you guys to decide tomorrow, I would strongly suggest we push it because we need your support.
Okay.
That works for us.
All right. And then also, it sounds like there's an application in process as well for the special event. Like, it'd be helpful to know
Yeah.
some finality there in terms of that application and what's being approved, rather than us committing dollars to something that may or may not happen on certain dates. Like getting clarity so that,
Gotcha.
yeah, getting that special event permit.
501c3 application, and I was like, oh, I don't know, but yeah.
Special event application.
There's some
I'm
street
assuming you're working with
closures.
through Jackie.
Okay.
Yes.
Been in touch with her, and I think she's contacted them, but we're still waiting to get
Okay.
more information
Yeah.
before I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can I just throw out that I worked with Mr. Puffer for the Glow event, and I just wanted to thank him for everything he did. He put his heart and soul and finances
That's amazing.
into it, and it was just incredible. And what you did downtown, and if I haven't told you enough, I want to make sure you understand how much I really appreciated what you did, and I know how much the community appreciated what you did for lighting up downtown for the holidays.
It was okay.
Yeah, I don't know that it was discussed in detail. I don't recall during the presentation or the subsequent question and answer, but I believe there's some street closures requested. Was that referenced in the presentation? Okay.
I'll get that way to you.
We need more information.
Yeah, Jackie gave me some information on the road closures and all that.
But that would be the intention.
Yes.
Okay, yep, I just want to make sure, just to give you as much information and context as possible, there would be a proposal. I think it's not for the entire time of the festival. It's,
Second Street would be requested as a primary, and then Western, if there's a possibility, that would be great, but I know that one's a street.
okay, yep. So there is some additional context there that would have some needs, and that's what the reason for the special event permit, because technically it's on private property, and where they're not public needs, then we wouldn't necessarily need one. So.
There's a request for street closures during the concert series.
Yep.
But that will be staff's determination.
Yep.
The review and determination there. Commissioner German?
Yes,
Or
thank you,
Vice
Mayor.
Mayor German?
Yeah. I gotta get used to it myself. Yeah. So just to get some clarity, are we looking to push this back, or what?
I mean, from a staffing perspective, we're amenable to that for sure.
Okay.
Sounds like we're all on the same page in terms of waiting a couple more weeks before a formal determination. Yes, Director Echolm?
It would be helpful if we could get some sort of appetite for a funding level that the commission is comfortable with, whether that's sending, an email just individually and, kind of let me know where you're at on it. Because, if it's, I'm comfortable with X and the DDA has X and they're willing, then that's a really easy conversation and it's going to save us a lot of time. But if it's a larger number and we have to maybe get creative with different allowable funding streams, then I'm going to come a lot more prepared in 2 weeks if I have a good idea of what you're looking for.
My suggestion would be to reach out to and confer with the DDA and our downtown business improvement
Certainly.
district as well as look at what resources available through the social district, because we have to look at what capacity those three funding sources have to piece together to provide support for this event. While we have ultimate, fiduciary responsibility over those dollars, it's those entities that are making their own budgets, and so I would suggest conferring with them to see what bandwidth they have to provide financial support. And Commissioner Ramsey, did you have something else to
No,
add?
I
or-
was just agreeing with you. I think that we are a funder of last resort when it comes to these things, and that's not saying that great organizations like the name, shouldn't come to us and ask, because you cannot get what you don't ask for. But I do think that it is our job to also find other funds in our community that are meant to support this thing, so that we don't have to massage the buckets of money where these things come from. So yeah, I push this bad boy out.
Sure. Yep, and there's been some conversation and checking into, level of funding at the existing social district fund balance and things of that nature, but no one of them can cover the ask. So again, it would be helpful to know where people's appetites are.
So are you asking us to, it's maybe hard for us to answer this question, right? But are you essentially asking us to say, hey, go find $100,000 from those three sources, or find $50,000 from those three sources? Is that what you're kind of looking for direction right now? Is like what dollar amount? It's kind of hard for us to answer that without knowing what resources available with those buckets, so to speak. But I see
Here we go.
Mr. Alexander over there might have some insights.
Dave Alexander, community or business development manager for your fair city, Mr. Mayor. I can tell you as a staff person for both the DDA and the bid that right now unexpended fund balance in the bid is $80,000. But this is not in the special assessment that you that you approved going forward. So that was never contemplated in there. The DDA obviously has the ability to do that in their support of the Lakeshore Art Festival and of Taste of Muskegon. They're not putting direct dollars in. Their support was to back them fiduciarily in terms of if there was a loss, they would cover it. They were hoping to actually make money on that. Right now, I would guess unexpended funds this year for the DDA is probably about $100,000. Does the DDA members that you appoint want to use all of that dollars for this or any portion of it for this? I do not know. That's the pool that is out there.
Okay. So it sounds like we have some unexpended or unrestricted funds available in each of those buckets. It's just a matter of determining their comfort level with allocating those dollars. And so I noticed that our DDA meeting was canceled for tomorrow. It's unfortunate because this could have been the topic to discuss. Any way you can uncancel that meeting?
Not this.
They reschedule a new one,
All right.
which we will if needed.
Yep, we'll convene and reschedule with them. Another question that I have that's an attorney question, which I sent out in an email and I don't think I got an answer yet, is what is the allowable use of TIF dollars for a private sponsorship of, even though it's free to the public, a private event on private property? There are some pretty specific restrictions on what DDA or any TIF dollars can be used for on private property, and so that's another clarification we'll have to figure out from a DDA standpoint as well.
All right. Sounds good. Tying up some loose ends.
Yep, thanks.
Get clarity. All right. Thank you. Commissioners, before we move on to the next agenda, any final questions or input on this matter? No? All right. Thank you. Moving on to Ride Muskegon operating agreement.
I think this is pretty much the same guy, so that'll be nice. So if you recall, Terry and his partner were in front of us. I don't know, maybe not a year ago, probably like 6-8 months ago, with the goal of bringing e-scooters that are app-based that people can rent, kind of like you see in some big cities into Muskegon. There were a number of concerns from the city commission about language that was in that agreement and how that might impact, I think, business that was operating in Lakeside. And I think we worked through all of those things. I think we determined that the group in Lakeside was they were not going to pursue this. It didn't make sense for them to pursue this. So we dealt with that issue. Terry and his group worked in some language that will provide us income, which maybe if we want to, we can spend on a concert series. But I think it's a quarter every time somebody unlocks one. We get from the scooter. So if every 4 times somebody unlocks one, we'll get $1. I think it was a quarter, right? It was a quarter every time one was unlocked. And then Dave worked with them to pick out some places in the downtown on public property where they could store them. People would drop them off, and that's where the pickup and drop off locations would be. And I think we pretty much hit most everything that the city commission had for concerns on the agreement. And we got it to a point where they're ready to get moving. And if we act soon, they can have scooters deployed in the late spring, which is really what we need. And I'll let them talk more about the business, what the business is going to be like. But it's really not changed a whole lot from their discussion with you guys earlier in 2021, except the way that it's funded and the way that it interacts, I guess, with the competitor that's no longer interested in doing it.
Mr. Puffer, would like to return to the podium? Long time no see. Thank you, Mr. Parent.
Take me in if you need me. No, this is Brian Reeder.
Okay. Attorney. Attorney. Gotcha.
Attorney, yep. He's the one that crafted this masterpiece.
All right, Mr. Puffer.
Yeah.
Want to speak to your project?
Yeah, so Ride Muskegon is a hopefully local scooter company that wants to disperse scooters from downtown Muskegon all the way down to the lake shore. The initial launch would just be that, scooters. So we're not asking for anything in terms of funding on this one at all from you guys, so that should be easy. In fact, we're going to give you guys money. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just want to open it up to questions. I think we've done this. This is like the 3rd time we've been up here. I think everybody has a pretty good understanding of the concept of what we're doing. But if anybody wants to ask questions, I'm happy to.
Thank you, Mr. Puffer. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Puffer? This is on our agenda tomorrow for consideration and a vote. Commissioner Hood.
I think when we was discussing this before, there was a matter about a non-compete clause.
Correct.
So is that the same? Can you go over that non-compete clause again?
Yeah, or Stephen probably can. It's been massaged, I think, to meet what the commission wanted to see.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, realizing that you can't show favoritism towards just a private entity. It takes out. We explored working with Lake Effect. They didn't want to continue to pursue it, but I guess we didn't realize how far we were going with that. And then once people started saying, what if I want to open a business or perform services? So we have absolutely reeled back. That was not our intention. So we put in to keep things fair and across the board, just put in a distance restriction where, they can't within, the proposed is 500 feet. So no competing entity, which is defined in there, is anyone that does the same or a similar business. So within a 500-foot, radius. And when I worked a little bit with John Schreier over this as well, he gave a good example of Pier Marquette. It's about a 5-mile long beach. We have food trucks there. They've never held anybody out. There's plenty of space, plenty of room for people to compete and to come into that space. And we're only talking about public rights of way or public spaces. This does not include private spaces. So if any business owner has a private space where they want to put their own scooters or do something similar, or offer that for use by another third party, they can more than happy to do that. Just wanted to give these guys, if they're making a contribution to the community, a fighting chance to do well with the scooters. And again, I'm from Grand Rapids, and I've seen the scooters come into play, and I got contacted by these guys to help them with this process. I jumped right at it because what I've seen in Grand Rapids is, you got lime, slime, everybody throws their scooters into this designated parking zone, and they're all knocked over and they're not maintained properly, and it's an eyesore. It is an absolute eyesore. There's bikes in people's front yards, and I don't know if it's because of the nature of the size of these bigger companies that they just don't pay that special attention to it. It could be. But for everything we've gone through, it seems like a great opportunity to give people that extra mobility space and increase transportation around Muskegon. And yeah, maybe the quarters will go to you guys and they give them back to for the social sandbox piece. Maybe not. But yeah, the 500 feet we thought was a good compromise, which does not make it exclusive. Anyone else has the right to compete, whether it's a big company, small company, whoever wants to do that type of work.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yeah,
Or, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hood, did you have any follow-up?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yeah, I actually don't have questions for either of them. I more have a question for you and for Lake Effect, who appears to be in the audience. So whenever it's appropriate for me to ask those, go ahead and let me know.
You have a question for you, myself,
Yeah.
Lake Effect?
And Lake Effect.
You can ask now.
Okay, great. So I know that Mr. Puffer, who we're seeing for the first time tonight, with Ride Muskegon, has said that Lake Effect is no longer interested in pursuing this e-bike option. I know that you were having some meetings with Lake Effect, and so I just wanted to make sure that as we look at supporting small local business, not that Mr. Puffer and all of his great endeavors are not those, there is a pre-existing, and I want to make sure that, you know, that it feels okay to everybody and that we're not like, "Ugh," about it, because that's going to mean something moving forward, right? Because community is community. And so I just want to know that we're all feeling good, or if we're not, why? Not you, Terry.
I want to clarify
why?
something though.
Yeah.
Based on what you're saying, I wanted to clarify something. So yeah, they're still interested in doing e-bikes. That's not part. They didn't want to be in this contract to be in the same parking spots as us. So that's what they're not interested in, is to share this agreement. They're still written in here as a not a competitor specifically. So we wrote them in anyway, regardless of them wanting to be in here as a non-competitor. So I just wanted to clarify that. They're still going to do what they're going to do.
This is exactly, these are the questions that I have, because that was my concern when this came to us the first time.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that, sure, I'll take a quarter, a bike, or whatever that is, but I want to make sure that the relationships in our community are continuing to grow and are not being contentious.
Yeah, and that was our goal as well. So I don't know if you want to come up and discuss meetings or whatever.
Terry knows, yes, we've had many meetings lately, so.
She's going to meet you in the
We
parking
are
lot, Terry,
all
watch out.
friendly here. But yeah, no, just to clarify, we are not formally listed as a partner in this agreement. That's not what we're talking about here. We are listed as a non-competitor. So what that is acknowledging is that, sure, anyone that wants to can come into Muskegon and set their scooters up as long as it's outside of Terry's 500 feet. That does not apply to me, right? So to clarify that, that means I can set up within his 500 feet.
High five!
And we worked together a lot on that. So Terry and Steve were very gracious about that. So yes, we do. Yeah. As far as my husband and I go, we plan to continue to grow in our business in Muskegon, and this isn't going to stop us from doing that. It just gives us another opportunity to kind of open other avenues and kind of jump on that same bandwagon too. So, yeah, we're working together, I would say, as much as we can for that. So.
That is
Answer
awesome.
questions?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for coming up here. I just
Awesome.
wanted
Yeah.
to make sure of that.
Yeah, we do still have intentions to pursue, of course, things like our e-bikes. That's our bread and butter, kind of. That's where we want to throw a lot of our money at. So,
Sure.
things like that. But yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
And
you.
Terry, thank you for, like, both of you, thank you for being a part of that solution, right?
I mean, our goal again with Lakeshore Legacy and this also is not to squish anybody's business.
Obviously not.
Not
Yeah,
the goal.
no. My second question is, Madam Clerk, do we have a tape measure? Because I don't know how long 500 feet is. If you get the joke, you get it. If you don't, it's okay. No, thank you, Terry, and thank you, Lake Effect. I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Emery?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Ándale, pues, somebody talk.
I guess I have a, as I said in our last meeting, last fall, I had a problem with because it still smacks of exclusiveness, and that, you know, we don't have that agreement with anybody else in the city of Muskegon. You know, I'm sure all the marijuana facilities would love to have an exclusive and not let anybody have a marijuana place literally right next door to them, which we've seen. So I don't know if my question is to our city manager, our mayor, but I just have a hard time. And granted, Lake Effect is named in it and not excluded, but many others are. So what is the purpose behind that?
So the purpose is the 500 feet. We're not being exclusive to the entire city. We're not being exclusive to any parking spot. The fact is we want to be exclusive in our parking spots within 500 feet. We don't want somebody operating in our space and then you guys get overrun with scooters. I mean, we've had several different conversations. There's not thousands of people that are going to be riding. I mean, you're going to have 5 different brands with scooters all over the city. So if anything, this helps maintain that look and maintain the city streets. It goes both ways. So that's the way I see it, is we're going to start off with 100 scooters. They're going to do e-bikes. And I think that's going to be a good series of what you have here. Now, do we care if somebody sets up 500 feet from us? Sure, but it's not in the contract. That's not what we're asking for. There's plenty of room. If you're saying 500 feet, just to give you the distance, from the deck down to, what is that ice cream shop right there?
Gotcha.
That's about 500 feet. So that's where the parking spots would lie, basically. So I did you guys get the document with the map and everything in it? Okay.
Trying
So,
to access in the map, but it wouldn't.
It's
said non-authorized
protected.
user.
so I did have a presentation and I'll actually give you guys this. I have a copy with these spaces that Dave Alexander and I went through.
I feel like we got this attachment F with the
You should, yes.
pictures, yeah.
Yes.
The map doesn't work.
Yep. And that has the link
The
though.
link to the Google Map doesn't work.
That has the link, but there's another one, Dave, I sent you the PowerPoint, or Steve did, that had the actual locations, the map, if somebody couldn't open it. But also in here, it does say the 16 city locations, which it tells me, it's pretty clear where these things are.
It's working now.
Based on just what it says.
Are these some of the Terry up there?
Yep, so, Dr. Rolfs, the Trunk Depot, Shoreline Inn, Art Dock, so, yeah, they're all listed on there, if you guys need a reference.
And I can follow up your question. So they can be within 500 feet on private property, so they're not fully excluded.
Correct.
Right? They can't. We couldn't rent a competitor other space in a different parking space at the end of the block or 2 spaces later. They would then have to go and maybe partner with the Holiday Inn or the Delta or whoever and get it and bring it onto private property. And so it does make it a little more difficult for them. But our goal in doing it was recognizing that we want to grow into the industry, and we also want the industry to come. So we were getting a little bit of a chicken and the egg sort of thing where all the bigger companies, we were too small of a market, they weren't interested in it. But the worry was if Terry showed a little bit of success, it wouldn't take much to grab 20 of the 3-year-old scooters that are not being used in Grand Rapids by one of those companies and just bring them over here. Leave them here. It doesn't cost them any money, and if people use them, then they get money. If not, they were just their old beat up ones anyway that they replaced. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a dumping ground for these other companies to try to make a couple bucks on. But to answer your question, we do, for things like this that are unique, it's not unusual for us to have like a radius. Ann brought up the one about the special events that pop up where there's a finite period of time to capitalize on it, and somebody put in a lot of effort to make something work for the community. We try to give them that protection. I think we did it for a while. I don't know that we do it anymore, but we had a 100-foot rule for food trucks.
We do.
So we still do.
We have 1,000 foot for a special event.
Yep. Yeah. So, but if you want to pull a food truck up in front of my restaurant, you either need to be 100 feet away or get my permission to be within 100 feet. And that was because we wanted the food trucks, but we wanted to be reasonably respectful of the community. And so, so no, it's not usual that we would pick a business and do something like this with, but it's not completely, unheard of in here that for something special that we're trying to get off the ground, that would have some kind of a little extra level of assistance for them to do that.
Okay, but like for special events, that's usually a not-for-profit or is
Normally.
yeah. So the cause is a different cause. This is a privately owned that is going to benefit financially privately, except for the quarter to the city. And we're wanting or being asked to give an exclusive to that.
Yeah,
That is correct. Yes.
I guess the only thing that I would point out is we've really been talking openly about this, and actually before they came, the reason we even started talking to them because we were actively looking for scooter companies to come in here that wouldn't pay us any attention, right? And so the idea that we finally found one, I would hate to end up not having them because now we're worried about competition when it's really the opposite. Like we had to work. I think they're going to have to work hard to actually make money at this. And we had to work hard to even get somebody to really pay it any attention, to hire the attorney, to write the agreement, to buy the scooters and to take the chance. It really was a recruitment effort on our part, more so than it was these guys, having scooters all over the place and just trying to make a few extra bucks. It was us from a planning department seeing these happening in different cities, or Dan RS seeing them happen in other cities and saying, why aren't these here? We got to find a way to get them here, and just having trouble getting them here. Not to say we can't go to a store and do it, but the app-based stuff is what's really opened people's minds to using scooters and things like that.
If we were, just one moment. If we were soliciting this and wanted to bring this to our community, why did we not opt to go for a request for proposal and solicit it that way?
I know that's normally your go-to for whenever we want to do something. We should do RF request for proposals. I don't know what the proposal would be. We couldn't even get them to answer our phone calls. So the idea that we would call Bird and call Lime and call them, and we couldn't even get a return phone call. It made the idea that they would respond to RFP almost like an episode of it would just be like a futile effort on our part. And at the same time, we really had nothing to offer. Right, we weren't really good. We weren't going to pay him to come here.
Well, I mean, we have public resources we're offering. We're offering public assets, exclusive access to public assets. And so, just in that regard, that was news to me. I hadn't heard before that we were soliciting someone to come here for this service. And I was just thinking, and previously I've talked about when we have public assets or resources, we should be having a good faith effort of making them available on a fair and equitable basis. And so that's what I was wondering, if we were actively seeking this out, why would we not have done a request for proposal? And if Lime or whomever didn't submit a proposal and they were the only ones to submit a proposal, well then, there we go.
I know
they're meeting our need.
I know the city of Grand Rapids just, I think it was Spin just added, and it was like skin of their teeth, they agreed to it, was 650 scooters. So, yeah, barely in on 650. I think that's kind of what Frank's getting at as well. Is they're not even going to hit that market at all. Not even worth their time and their efforts necessarily. But not to speak for them, but certainly flexible during the once this agreement's in place, flexible depending on how things are going. Certainly reasonable to work if it makes sense, for them and for the company to back it down 25 feet or 50 feet, as long as you're not inundating the city with all these scooters. And again, coming from that Grand Rapids experience, and my office is right on like Fulton and Division, right in the middle of downtown. There have been a couple dozen days where I've tripped over scooters. They're strewn all about, and they're from different companies, and they kind of boxed them all together. So there'll be 3 designated parking zones right next to each other. So you have 20 of these scooters all over the place, and just by nature of a scooter itself, maybe each ride is at 500 feet, but you don't necessarily want all this traffic because then it creates other liabilities for safety, and could impact pedestrians as well. But knowing that they cannot ride them on the sidewalk, as you guys know from in 19, so everyone has to be in the street riding them. But still, every about 500 feet's a good distance and reasonable one, and they won't stick out like sore thumbs.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to be overwhelmed
Yeah.
with them.
And I'll just say, like, we thought we hit the home run. I mean, the corporate guys weren't responding, but a Muskegon resident, Muskegon business owner, Muskegon supporter said, hey, you know what I'll do? I'll start a scooter company to fit your need. I mean, it just seemed like, it didn't seem like the correct response to him was, well, hold on, let me send out one less RFP and see if we can convince somebody else to come in and undercut you or do a better job than you. It just seemed like we tried our best within reason, and we found somebody locally that wanted to give it a shot. I don't think Terry's a scooter operator. I think he's creating this for the community, is what I understand.
Oh yeah, and I appreciate his response to that. I'm not trying to chastise you or staff on working with Mr. Puffer on trying to create this. It was just news to me that we were soliciting this, and if we were, and it's just my thinking that if we were going to solicit it, we'd do an RFP, and I would think that we'd want to talk to an existing business that provides this service already to some extent, and talk to them about scaling it up. Commissioner Ramsey, before we go to you, Commissioner German did have his hands up and he's not had an opportunity to speak yet, so I'm going to go to Vice Mayor German, then Commissioner Ramsey, and then Commissioner Emery, who had a follow-up from before.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Puffer, well, it's good that both you businesses are talking and working things out. My concern was, when we had this conversation before, was the fair opportunity for both businesses to operate if they chose to.
Correct.
One of the questions also, the exclusivity of parking and the actual phases that you were looking to go into. I know you talked about phases too in that first presentation.
Right.
What phase are you in now, and where are you looking to expand?
It would be phase one right now. So
Okay,
that
and that
just get
covers-
the scooters dispersed within the downtown corridor and then on the trail to the lakeshore. So just in that corridor initially is phase one.
Okay. And did I see in the contract, we're looking at about a 5-year contract?
Initial term of 5 years with 4 optional terms of renewal for additional 5 years, so potentially total of 25 years.
25 years.
So, but the initial contract itself would be a total of
The initial
25.
term is 5 years with 4 optional
Okay.
5-year terms of renewal.
Contingent of,
They can exercise it.
okay.
And there's an option for the city to terminate it with 90 days notice, but
Okay.
there's an exclusivity period with that we cannot exercise termination before December 31st of 2023.
Okay.
So we would not be able to exercise that termination clause till after, until 2024, basically.
And that was another concern of mine because it basically monopolizes the business and something that I, definitely oppose. It just doesn't give fair opportunity.
So let me ask you, so in terms of the exclusivity, what's exclusive about what we're offering? I mean, you still have access to, anybody could still have access to all public, all private. They could go to any business and say, hey, I'll give you $20 a month, let me park 4 scooters here. They can fully operate that way. And we're exclusive only to 500 feet. And that's a very small exclusive space to operate. And we've got another local company that we've just said, go ahead and operate anywhere. And so I don't understand the exclusivity piece. I mean, it's almost a moot point that we have the 5-year in there. You guys can terminate anyway after 2023.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
it
wasn't
allows
like that
me.
before though, correct?
Well, before it's that 500 feet, and they can still operate anywhere within 5 feet of us if it's private property. So, I mean, the exclusivity is so small, at least in my eyes, that I don't know that this is just something to get us going. Because, I mean, there's not much exclusivity here, guys. Really isn't.
But you're set up on public property also.
Set up on public
Right,
property
so-
with 500 foot. That's the exclusive space, 500 foot.
Yeah,
Because
so-
that's what I have,
And no one else can park within 500 feet of,
except Lake Effect,
okay, so,
who already operates here.
Okay.
Or private, again, if somebody's private and they're right the deck, somebody rents and wants five scooters there, they can certainly do that. They just have to set up on private property. And again, our goal is to recoup our funds. I mean, and that's why we put that in there, is that's the 2023. I hope to make our money back by then. Then if you terminate us, I'm not out all my money. So it's kind of a fail-safe for us to not lose our butt trying to connect downtown corridor to the lakeshore corridor, because that's what we're trying to do. How many people walk to 794 Grill? Not many. They drive. How many will be able to, because I've got now a little scooter parking space out there, and now they can cruise right downtown, park at another establishment and jump in and do whatever they want. We're connecting downtown. We're even up 3rd Street by Hamburger Mikey's. So we're allowing these corridors to connect that normally people wouldn't walk to. So I don't know. Again, I mean, as far as the exclusive agreement, I think it's very narrow. Very narrow.
Okay, and this is in your phase one.
Phase 1, correct.
Right. And phase 2.
So we're working on phase 2. After talking to Lake Effect, they're in the bicycle bicycle sector, and we'd like them to stay there and do their thing in the bicycle sector with not much competition from us.
Okay.
So at this point, we need to reestablish phase 2 and phase 3 in partnership with them. We're not partners, but we're working together to try to make this thing work.
Okay.
So.
Now, okay, and not to jump ship here, but I got a chance to meet with you all, and you did express interest in e-bikes, but also was it scooters also at the time?
Miss Chambers, if you come to the podium so that everyone can hear you.
Our current business, has evolved, but it always was. So pedal bikes and electric bikes, and then we evolved into picking up a small fleet of electric scooters. That all happened really before we even knew that this was kind of something that was coming, before we even knew about Ride Muskegon. I'll say that. We purchased a small fleet of scooters. So it kind of was on our roadmap. Will I say that the scooters are, something that we wanted to pursue fully? No, and that's certainly not in our wheelhouse. You won't see it on our roadmap, but our business model is a little different than what Terry's talking about as far as the app-based scooter system. Having said that, I do want to tackle that side of that industry with the electric bikes. So like Terry said, him handling kind of the scooters, Lake Effect, staying within our realm, which we already have our e-bikes, just kind of upping that. And deploying some more of those out to the city. That was always our original intent.
Okay, and one last question, Ms. Puffer, do you have any interest in also e-bikes to limit, not to have conflict or anything with?
Yeah, so it's a conversation that we're gonna have, so we're not there yet.
Okay.
So I know, again, my push for her is to operate the e-bikes, and then us do more of the smaller mobile scooters.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor German. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes. Oh. Sorry, it's been a minute since it was my turn. I wanted to talk about the exclusivity contract in regards to both of these individuals and their respective businesses standing up here. So my hesitation initially was, where does the city make money? Sorry. But then Lake Effect, right? I think that speaking specifically about that with Commissioner Emery, what I would like us to see that exclusivity content provide is a barrier to us becoming the electric bike and scooter graveyard that Detroit has become. They are everywhere, and because like we mentioned, big companies like Lime and Bird and all, they're just everywhere, laying all over. And I think that if that clause, as long as it's not affecting Lake Effect, allows us defense against big companies coming in and saying, okay, we're going to bring our scooters that cost us a nickel a piece, and we're going to literally litter your streets and sidewalks with them. I'm all for that clause, as long as it doesn't affect any other smaller businesses in our community or that are trying to start. But I'm reckoning that if these two individuals have got the lion's share hold on stuff, everybody else should watch out. So I hope that makes sense, but I understand your concern. Whatever we can do to stop big companies from coming in and littering our streets with them is why I appreciate that exclusivity clause. It gives us something.
Thank you,
And she can talk,
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Commissioner Emery.
And I understand and agree with that. I don't want it to be, but according to our manager, we didn't have anybody knocking on our door anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's valid.
From all of, we are a small community. And so my problem is the city entering into this. So according to what you're picturing is that you have these corners and nobody except Lake Effect can come within 500 feet. Nobody,
Correct.
whether it's on private property or not.
No. Private property
Private
can't.
property, yes.
So it's just anybody that would want to use public parking for the space.
Okay, use city space.
City space. Correct.
City
Okay.
property.
There's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
there's still a million ways somebody can get around it, but it makes it a lot harder.
Yeah.
And anybody like Lime or anybody like that would not want to go through these hoops, which protects us, protects you guys. I mean, it protects everybody from, again, having the streets littered with scooters. So it's just that little
And-
veil of protection.
Yes, and to that argument, I guess.
I guess what I was trying to get across, especially with the email that I had out with you and Ken, is my argument against, or I guess Terry and I's argument against more of an RFP, and in response to the RFP situation would be, in a way, by not doing an RFP, it helps me especially, but also Terry. So I think our argument is by not offering an RFP, it's acknowledging that you are recognizing that there are two, not one, but two, right, local businesses that are interested, so that you aren't really, because for real, if we open it to an RFP, yeah, the guy that owns the Spin and the Limes in Grand Rapids, there's nothing stopping him from coming in. You guys wouldn't want that, right? I mean, you would want to show, I don't want to use the word favoritism, but of course, that you guys would want.
Favor our neighbors.
Not favor, but you would want to show, you know what I'm getting
wanna favor our
at. So
neighbors.
of course, in that way, it's,
Which is still,
arguing our point against an RFP, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, what sounds like we wouldn't have even got responses from Lime or the big guys because they weren't answering our phone calls. But we still would have that discretion as the commission, as part of an RFP, to decide who gets a proposal.
Right.
And so ultimately, it'd be the commission's decision as part of an RFP. But
If I may real quick as well, so yeah, after December 31st of next year, so, a year and 3 quarters, if for some reason Lime approaches you and they're like, hey, the 25 cents, heck, we'll give you $1 a scooter, and we're gonna bring them in. You have the right at that time to give a 90-day notice and terminate the contract. So just trying to protect them so they can hopefully at least make their investment back. But after that, yeah, 90-day notice, you're free to do what you'd like. Hopefully you'll choose to do that, but that is the option as stated in the agreement.
Which brings up, I'm not real keen about the length of this agreement either. That what if something happens and your scooters are all over downtown and people are tripping over them and, we can't end this before December of 23, this agreement?
Yeah, I mean, we have somebody dedicated, planned to be dedicated just to go around and pick up scooters, swap batteries, put them back in the parking spot. So, I mean, if there's ever an issue with our scooters laying everywhere, that's a conversation I'm gonna have with an employee to make sure that doesn't happen. So there's somebody dedicated directly to them.
And what is the purpose of having it go so long? We can't do the first year and test it and see how it,
Want to recoup my investment.
as anyone who opens a business in the city or in the county of Muskegon wants to recoup their investments.
I understand.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Thank you. I know that we've talked about the idea of an RFP quite a lot. I do have concerns about building this privately without offering this opportunity that's being extended to you to the rest of the community. And I understand that we don't want big money scooter company coming in and squishing the local competition. I believe it has been established that that is unlikely. The city manager suggested that they didn't even want to come. But I imagine there might be other citizens who would have liked this opportunity who already live here also and would have liked to have had the opportunity to explore their potential. I don't know that anyone would have stepped up and said, yeah, I want to do this, but we didn't give anybody the opportunity, and now we're offering your company a pretty nice deal. And I just feel like I need to voice that. That is a concern for me. I have heard a lot from the community about us offering sweetheart deals to specific people. And sometimes that's what you have to do to get your needs met. And I understand that you may have been the only person who was willing to step up to do this, but we don't know that. And we don't know that Lake Effect might not have been willing to step up and do this because we didn't ask them. And I just have to voice that I understand the reluctance to do an RFP, but I also have concerns about hand picking who we offer our support to and who we don't.
So I completely understand. I can tell you that if we don't move forward with this, we'll probably end up just going the private route and renting space privately. And so we want this to work because you guys would get paid for it. It's easier for everybody. But that's probably the route we will end up taking. And then you can do your RFP. That's completely up to you guys. And if you don't get a taker, now we're not partnered. And that's what I want. Because, yeah, there's private options. And that's the route we're going to go.
And just to clarify, I feel like the cat's out of the bag on this, and I don't know that we can walk this back.
Sure.
But I just want to state for the record that in the future, I would like us to see a more deliberate outreach. When we have ideas as a community that we want to see grow, I want them to be out there on the table for more people to have a bite at the apple. And that, that's nothing against your company and your enthusiasm, and I imagine you will be a great scooter provider. And I imagine there are other people who also would have been great scooter providers that maybe don't already have an established presence in the community. So, just saying.
Thank you, Commissioner St. Clair.
Rebecca, can you just comment? Yes, and to answer, and I openly discussed to Terry and Steve, if I would have had the capital, we, as Lake Effect, probably would have pursued that. It certainly would have been in 2022. We've taken baby steps, just like with everything else that we've done. So it would have probably taken me a lot longer to, secure capital. But it was on our roadmap. Certainly not on a larger scale, as Terry's presenting, but it would have. I will also say that, I was also unaware, and this is the first time I've heard that the city was soliciting. I don't think that ever came up in any of our conversations either. Were you specifically solicited? Okay. So, yes, I would have also, and that came up early on in the conversation, I think back in October. I think that the city acknowledged that, and I would have appreciated some of these conversations happening sooner, probably about a year ago, both from Terry and Steve and from the city. I wish that somebody would have approached Lake Effect and would have whispered in our ear that, hey, there's an inkling that this is coming to town, and given Kimani and I a little bit more opportunity and time, but that just isn't the case, so here we are.
Indeed. And that's why I'd reached out to you, Ms. Chambers, last fall when this came before us, and realizing that we had a business already here providing the service, not necessarily the scale, but providing the service, and wanting to understand what the impact would be on your business. And particularly because last year we had set a goal of promoting more women minority-owned businesses, particularly in the Lakeside District. And so to see this opportunity to come before us and potentially undo your business that's already there and undo part of our goal setting, that's why I was like, hey, let's pump the brakes on this and advocated tabling it. I also had some concerns about, at that time that agreement had no financial contribution. It was free access to all city public property. Now we do see a financial contribution, 25 cents on lots, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Mr. Puffer, conferring with Ms. Chambers and understanding, possibilities for partnership or understanding implications for her business, at least naming her as a non-compete in there so that if she does want to set up operations within there, she may choose to do so within that 500 feet. When I brought up, just to be clear, when I brought up the RFP earlier, it was just, that was as a result of me hearing and learning for the first time that we were actively soliciting this service. And that's why I was saying, if that was the case, my preference would have done an RFP. I'm not here advocating saying we need to step back and now do an RFP on this. It was just, that would have been my preferred route for soliciting this kind of service provider. This is on our agenda tomorrow, commissioners, for a vote. Do you have any further questions or input, or is there anything in that agreement as it stands now that gives you, enough pause that you're going to vote no on it, but if it were tweaked or modified, that you could support it?
I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Hood, do you have anything?
I have no further questions. I'll probably support it.
Commissioner Emery?
The length of time.
Vice Mayor German?
Same thing here, length of time. Also, the contract of 5 years and possible 25 years. Also, the competing also because and this came up in the last first presentation where there were it was a business that was set up downtown, working downtown, out of the chalets down there. Corey and I can't think of the young man's name.
Right.
LaRue, yeah, and they had scooters and segways and stuff like that. And my concern was at the time, if they wanted to get back into the business, would this exclude them? And by setting up a contract or some type of contract agreement, would they have a fair opportunity to operate in these different locations and for its parking and stuff like that? So I guess what I'm saying, with the opportunity for others that want to get into the business, how does this allow them to be able to have a fair opportunity to compete?
So if this agreement were approved as is,
Yes.
Anyone else, aside from Lake Effect Sport, anyone else that wants to operate in our city could operate where it's permitted by zoning on private property, or they can enter into agreement with the city to operate on public property outside of the 500 feet radius that's an exclusionary zone around their identified and our agreed upon locations.
And that's the problem right there, because the agreed up area that's already agreed upon, it's already been agreed upon under a contract. So, I mean, and I understand you want to recoup your investment. I totally get it. But by it not being, as you stated, having our RFP, and that's the first I've heard about it too, it being solicited, it really didn't give a fair and equitable opportunity for others to partake into the opportunity with these scooters. That's one of the concerns I have.
I think to that, though, the city does have the option to not approve a specific location. So if the city determines that, hey, like these couple square blocks, we're going to reserve for the next group that wants to come around, and these guys are chomping at the bit to get in there, it has to be a mutual agreement. They could say, no, we're actually going to reserve these ones for this other company. So it's not a guarantee that they can also operate, which it gives a little bit of power back to the city and kind of balances the agreement out a little bit more if they have different goals or there's more rumblings about people joining. And I did have one other question, and I don't know the answer to this. Besides Lake Effect and Ride Muskegon, had anyone received correspondence after that news article was released? And I think WZZM had it back in October of last year. Did anyone hear of another company or any interest following up or in doing the same types of services?
I personally have not received anything. I don't know about any other members of the commission or staff.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one other question. To the point of the attorney, that's something that could be amended into the.
Well, you have an opportunity when this comes up for consideration tomorrow. If you pull it from the consent agenda, you have an opportunity to make any amendments that you wish to the agreement and approve as such, and then they can decide if that amendments are amenable to them, and they wish to sign that approved agreement based upon what we approve on our end.
All right, thank you.
I have some reservation about the not being able to terminate until after December 31st of 2023. Only because if this, worst case scenario blows up in our face this year, and the community is in uproar over it for whatever reason, does not want it. And then we do not have an opportunity to say, hey, no, we're not going to proceed a second season to do it. I certainly can understand doing it one season, and having that exclusionary where we can't terminate it in the middle of the season or anything like that, and giving the opportunity as kind of a pilot and a proof of concept and see how it functions, and then tweak going forward. One of my other reservations is, while I do appreciate the addition of the 25-cent unlock now, so we are getting something for exclusive access to public assets. There's no inflator on it, so it's 25 cents static for 25 years, potentially. And that I'm not necessarily keen on. So I'd rather there not be 4 additional 5-year options to renew automatic, or we give consideration to an inflator. But I probably would say not an automatic 4 or 5 years of renewal. I mean, that's 25 years, potentially exclusive access to public assets.
But again, after 2 years, you can terminate the agreement and make them renegotiate a new one if you really don't like it. If you really think it's that much, I would just say, I'm being just a little bit here. I know how much time like between John Schreier and them worked on it. I mean, we probably need like 3,000 unlocks before we pay for our attorney fees into this thing so far. Maybe more than that. So I mean, the more every time we massage it, I mean, it does cost, it costs, I'm sure, their attorney money, and it definitely costs our attorney money. But I will say the whole point of having that second year 90-day in there was to make sure that we're coming in this as a partnership. Terry has the opportunity to recoup his costs. I would say if you want to get out of that, then there probably could be a buyout there that says if we cancel it before 2023, we can buy his scooters from him. I don't know if we'd want them, but I mean the cheaper, best way to do it would be to let him get through his second year, recoup his dollars. If it's not working, muddle through that last year and just make it work. I could imagine it'd have to go pretty sideways for the kind of uproar that you're worried about. I mean, it'd have to be pretty bad considering we've seen scooters in, I don't know, thousands of cities probably across the world right now.
And what's not in like the Grand Rapids agreement that's in this one, so before December 31st of 2023, if they materially breach the contract, so there's scooters all over the place, they don't work, they're not paying over the monies over to the city, I mean, there's serious breaches, 30-day notice, they're gone. So if we have some serious big problems, things absolutely go sideways, you have an out at any time. I mean, you'd have an out if it starts April 1st. Hey, if they breach it the next day and you send them notice and they don't cure it, March or May 2nd, hit the road. So there's a lot of outs in there for the city, and the whole spirit of this is for everybody to really, the two companies to work together on behalf of the city and its residents and visitors, to have those little extra branches of transportation and mobility to connect various parts of the city. It's a great city. You guys are doing a terrific job around here. And yeah, I think this is it accelerates you a little bit forward. And with no skin off your back and a couple quarters in your pocket, I guess.
Indeed, hopefully thousands.
But you're gonna get paid in quarters too.
Yes.
Perfect.
Hey, there's a coin shortage.
That's true.
All right. We will vote on this tomorrow. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, you
Final.
didn't. You didn't ask Commissioner St. Clair or Commissioner Gorman their thoughts or if they had any final questions.
I actually asked the entire bench and nobody had anything. Thank you.
Really?
Yes, I did.
So there.
I did.
Is there support then for a vote tomorrow or not?
It's on the agenda tomorrow. There will be a vote tomorrow. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Thank you, Mr. Pufford.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Next up, neighborhood engagement training proposal. We have our deputy city manager, Leanne Mikesell.
Died up here.
Am I supposed to?
As well as, is it Miss Stith? All right, we have Miss Stith from Design Group International here as well, but we have our deputy city manager, Mike Sell, to lead out.
Yes. So we've been talking for a while about how we can better engage with our neighbors. And to that end, I've gone through a bit of a process. I'm going to take this off while I'm talking. With various people who could help us in this endeavor. And so we have landed with Noelle Stith, and she was recommended to us by Beth Below, who we've worked with for other training. And Noelle is with the Design Group International. So we've had quite a number of conversations about what we would want, how we would want this to be. The main idea here is that we would have some initial training with some stakeholders that we would select, and we would choose stakeholder groups that were more focused on social equity and provide them this training and then get their input to see where we might need to revise it. And then we would make 3 training sessions available to our neighborhood, well, our neighbors. So, and our idea was that we would hold these in different locations throughout the city so that we could make it easily accessible for everybody. So I have the proposal here, and I was going to just have that up on the screen, kind of go through this a little bit. If Ann can. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I've kind of talked about the why. You know, part of this is trying to reach more people. Part of this is helping people understand how they can be effective in communicating with various boards, commissions, all of you, and staff, so that their voices can be heard and they can get their points understood. And definitely we're looking to do some trust building with our community. So that's essentially the why. I talked a little bit about what we're doing. So Noelle's done a really nice job of putting some bullet points on here of, you know, what we're trying to do, helping people do a better job of explaining their situation and their perspectives. And like I said, you know, the goal here is just to get more community input, and especially from people who are not typically communicating with us. So one other thing I want to mention is that we are working with our Director of Community and Neighborhood Services to fund this so that we can also use the CDBG COVID dollars and help reach people who have been impacted by COVID, and provide some more information to them about resources available to them. So we're doing a little bit of a partnership on this effort, and that's different from what we've discussed before. But I think it's a nice way to mingle those two things. So I've kind of talked about where we would do this. We're happy to have input from all of you. Hopefully you've had time to review this proposal. Before we take questions, I'd like to just have Noelle come up here so that you can meet her, and she can certainly say whatever she would like about what she's proposing.
Welcome, Ms. Stith.
My name's Noelle Stith. I'm a senior consultant with Design Group International. I'm actually born and raised here in Muskegon, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhoods. Big Red, so. But I've lived in multiple neighborhoods as I've lived here as well. So I am really excited to actually be here to work in the neighborhoods. I guess if there's any particular questions that you guys have, I am looking forward to. I think that one of the things that working with Deputy Miskel is that I am excited to be able to empower residents to be able to utilize their voice and to be able to also have input. And I think that input and data and being able to hear the community voice is something that's really important. So I'm actually really excited that that's something that's a priority for you all as well to be doing this work.
Absolutely, bolstering that engagement and strengthening that trust,
Right.
And empowering our residents. It's so important. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Stith or Deputy Manager Mike Sell? Vice Mayor German.
Yes. Hello and welcome. I guess my first question is, you talk about building trust, engaging the community. We've had these conversations and dialogue before, and actually they're ongoing. What is it that you could bring to the city of Muskegon when it comes to building trust from the community that actually really don't trust local government?
So one of the neat things about the way that Design Group International does consulting is we're not this product consultant. We don't tell you like, this is what you should do and this is how you do it and this is going to fix all of your problems. We're really a humble inquiry type. So what our plan is to first go into the neighborhoods and listen, listen to what they say. And from that, I mean, we have some bullet points of ideas of what the points would be as far as the training, but it would really be the neighborhoods that are kind of telling you what it is that they want to utilize in their neighborhood trainings because they know their neighborhoods best. So I think that that's one of the unique things that will provide alongside of the deputy here is be able to really listen, and then what we hear will then create the curriculum from that point. We'll create all of the things that we need to do as far as the outreach by what they say, where they say they want to have it, what they think their needs are, and even listening to where they want to be able to build that relational trust as well.
And just from your work in the field there, a last question here, what has been the success rate and I guess the turnaround time when you go into the neighborhoods and you talk to these people in the community? I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the positive results and how effective is it when it comes to working with the government or whatever entity after you've done these trainings?
Well, I guess success would be kind of also measured on what you guys think success is. So, are they coming to more meetings? Are they actually participating? What is the community response to what you're putting out there? I can't really tell you what a number of success rate. I guess you would have to kind of help dictate what success looks like for you. And part of that success looks like the building of the relational trust. I think if maybe an output of relational trust development would look like they would be coming to more meetings and be contributing, they would. So I guess those are some of those measurable points as far as it's really hard for me to be able to say on a scale what success would look like. I think that with Deputy Mitchell, she has the neighborhood partners in mind. So maybe success would look like them being able to rally their community together to come to these events. And that would be kind of success as well, because even locally within the neighborhoods, that would develop relationship there as well. So I'm sorry, I can't really give you this measurable piece, but that would be kind of determined on you guys. I mean, because that's the hope, is to say, hey, this is what we want. So I guess it would kind of take some work on your part too to say what is it that you actually want this output to be.
And just one last thing, Mayor, because and I don't know if all the commissioners received this, but I did send out a Harvard Business Review on elements of building trust, and I was hoping that everyone got that. That was due to a request of one of the fellow commissioners. So that's something that you can actually take and use as a tool to help build trust in your endeavors as you pursue relationships with the community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Commissioner St. Clair?
Thank you. I really like the idea of someone who is from the community but not from the government, helping to to be that bridge, because I think that as a community, there's a lot of distrust and a lot of mistrust, and some of it is earned and some of it is just not. But it doesn't matter why people don't trust, they don't trust. So I love the fact that you're from the community and have roots here. I think that that is a definite bonus for this.
Just one moment, Commissioner Ramsey. I see you. I just want to say I see you, but Commissioner Emery had her hand up first.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
fine. No, I
Commissioner Emery.
remember this one.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I have a concern. When I read this, is the brief summary is staff will present information on a proposal to offer training that will educate our neighbors on communication with staff, boards, and elected officials. I'm afraid that our community, because that's the world we're living in right now, will turn that around and say we're not the ones that need to be educated. It's all these people in government that needs to be educated. So maybe reword that.
Wouldn't be
I don't
wrong.
know.
Well, the point here is for us to provide some information to our neighbors. Not everybody knows about every board and commission that exists in our city, and we'd like to provide them that information because it's information they need to have, and hopefully it drums up support for people who might want to participate on those in the future. I think that many people don't understand which department does which work, and we hear routinely that people don't know who they're supposed to contact for this or that. And so that's part of the educating that we want to do. It's not like we're telling people, this is how you communicate. It's, here's some information about our city. Here's how it works, how we operate, so that you can do a better job of getting your point across to the right people and the right boards and commissions. So it's not that we're trying to educate them on how to communicate.
Okay. And I understand that. It's just that our neighbors may not understand it that in that way. They'll see it as immediately get defensive and say, "Oh, you're not teaching me anything because y'all don't know anything anyway." So that's what I'm afraid of.
So is your concern just the language that we use? Like
Yes,
training?
yes,
Like,
some yes,
don't use the
yes.
word training, I suppose. Like it's just reframing it. I mean, the impetus is still there.
Or
the goals
on
are still there.
or
It's-
on communication, how to reach out to
Engagement.
and get your point across. Maybe something like that. That's my point.
Thank you, Commissioner Emery. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes, I made notes. I want to thank
I've been
Commissioner
looking
St.
forward
Clair.
to you listening to you. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank Commissioner St. Clair. Those are very wise words that we all need to hear all the time, and because they apply to all of our neighbors, right? Regardless of the reason. Our job is to rebuild or build trust. I would like to encourage you guys, not that I'm going to tell you how to do your job, because that's why you're here. When you look for additional places, I know that this is just potential locations suggested. I see the word suggested. I would encourage you to reach out to each and every one of us so that we can also help you pick some spots that maybe neither of you are aware of that serve as community centers within our smaller neighborhoods that have a little bit of trust there, so that maybe we can collaborate and partner with them to get more people in the room, eh? And then finally, as the CRC liaison, I would love to know when your first engagement session is going to be, because we, staff and myself, are working on a couple of new policies that need to come to commission before, as far as attendance and things like that, nothing crazy. But I would love for you guys to share the most up-to-date information. And so Holly and I will burn the midnight oil to get that stuff done so that it's ready for you guys, so that our neighbors aren't getting something that changes 25 minutes later. And thank you. This is awesome. That's all.
Any other follow-up, Commissioner Emery?
What will the total cost of this be?
$7,450 is estimated
It's right in
pricing,
there.
Oh, yeah, 10.
which honestly seems perfectly reasonable for the extent. I mean, if you look at the extent of work being provided, services being provided, it seems reasonable to me. And that's actually discounted from your regular rates, I believe. It says there's a discount for a governmental or nonprofit entity. But when will this be coming before us? Well, you're going to asking us to formally approve this expenditure, where you're going to be pulling it from an already budgeted line item.
It's from the CDBG COVID funding. I guess I'll have to talk to Director Bailey on which line item this fits under and get her counsel on what approvals we might need. I'm not entirely sure when that might come to you. I do want to understand your perspective on this, and certainly if you've got some comments on different ways to go about this, or after reading the proposal, I'd be happy to have those. I guess I would like an information from all of you on how supportive you are of going forward with this proposal, so that Noel and I can just start working through the detail.
Thumbs up for me. Commissioner Emery, final.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't. I think that it's worth every penny. Anything we can do to reach out to our community and our neighbors and help them, help us, help them type of thing. So, yes, absolutely, I'm all for this.
Nod.
Yes.
Consensus. Vice Mayor German, final thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think it's a good start in the right direction. Again, being a commissioner for 10 plus years and being active in the community with neighborhood associations and just talking to people in general, there's definitely room for educating the community, I feel. And for staff to reach out and put something together and not just stop, once this training is over. As when I sent out the Harvard study to you all, it talked about the consistency. And I said that before, and these are just some of the models that I've used to help me. It may not help others, but it has helped me build better relationships and trust, with most of my constituents. You're going to have those who trust you and those that don't, but for the most part of it, you're going to represent them anyway and be in their best interest, and that's what the city is projecting here. Yep. So thank you.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German. Thank you, Ms. Stith. Thank you, Ms. Mike South. All right, so I'm going to change this up. I know next item is the GARE update. However, I know there's a number of people here that wish to are interested in our Lakeshore to Laketon, our Laketon to Lakeshore Trail Connector, and so I'm going to go with that item right now and bump that up the schedule. So we have our Deputy Director from DPW here. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. This is my first time up here since I was first introduced, so I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm Dan Vanderhyde, Deputy Director of Public Works. Leo sends his regrets. Thank you for moving up the item, Mayor, and thank you to those who came out to be a part of this. I'll just run through quickly what it is that we're doing, and then we're looking to receive feedback from not only the Commission, but as the Mayor mentioned, from the public as well about the potential project or the grant that we're applying for. So this is an item to support, to issue a resolution of support for applying for a grant for a trail to connect the Laketon Trail and the Lakeshore Trail together. Informational mailers were sent to the residents and other folks along the trail, and so that's part of the reason why we're here tonight, to seek that feedback. There's a map included in the packet there that shows the overall route of the trail. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get that on the screen, but it's been a long-standing goal of the city to connect these two trails. They both connect to regional trails outside the city, and in fact, once this link is made, you'll be able to go from Grand Rapids to approximately Hart on a trail the entire time. And over the time, we've considered many routes. Many of the obstacles have been related to the space available, the right-of-way available to build it. And the route that we've proposed or selected is it's based on a couple important road diets on Terrace Avenue and on Sanford Street. Terrace project is happening this year, and Sanford will be happening next year. The reduction in both of those streets will allow for the trail to be constructed completely within the existing right-of-way that we have, and will allow the trail to cross at signalized crossings. It also runs right between Muskegon High School and future middle school campuses, adjacent to City Hall and the county courthouse and the farmers market. It passes through many neighborhoods, Nelson and Jackson, and is only one block removed from the McLaughlin and Angel. And Sanford Street would allow for an extension further south into Muskegon Heights that were able to be done in the future and would connect to other areas in the community at large, like Muskegon Heights High School campus and downtown Muskegon Heights. And again, there's a map I see. Thank you, clerk. Up on the screen there. So the trail will be along east sidewalk of Sanford Street and the west sidewalk Terrace Street. The city is going to provide winter maintenance on this section of the trail, similar to how we do for other important parts of the Lakeshore Trail and the Laketon Trail. The cost overall for the project right now is at $2.4 million. The grant, which is intended to be a combined grant to both MDOT and the DNR Trust Fund or Recreational Trails Program, is for $1.6 million. The additional dollars, there's many ideas that have been brought forth, including private funding. We've been talking with a group called the Iron Bell Trail Fund, and they've had great success raising private funds for their trail, given that it connects larger parts of the state, and this connection should do the same. And so we're hopeful that that's a potential source for us there. The schedule, as I mentioned, the Terrace Street project is this year. Sanford Street project will be next year. Conversations with the state have heard that 2024 is the best time for us to apply for these grants, and so construction of the trail would follow the setup, and construction would be in the 2024 or perhaps 25 construction season. In the packet you have the letter that was sent to the residents, a map that was included with that, which is the one that's up on the screen. There's some additional detailed concept there in the packet as well, provided by our consultant, Brandon Newhoff. And really, so what I'd like to do at this point is open it up to your feedback as well as to the public's feedback and help answer questions related to the project.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderhyde. I will, for one, say that I wholeheartedly support this Laketon to Lakeshore Trail connector. I think it has many, many benefits, and I'm eager to see the continued build out of our biking infrastructure across our city, and making it more accessible for our neighbors and the surrounding areas of our downtown, being able to access our downtown, as well as, like you said, it reaches that trail system reaches so many other areas as well. So I'm excited about the prospect of this. But commissioners, what's your input? What's your questions? Commissioner Ramsey.
I just have two quick questions. You said east side of Sanford and then west side of Terrace?
Yes.
Or vice versa, whatever the question, it doesn't matter. The question that I have is, how does that transfer happen at that hugely busy intersection to go from one side of the street to the other without creating
Good question.
What'd you say? Yeah. Without, me getting hit by a car?
Sure.
So how does that happen? And then my second question, and I'll let you answer them both at the same time. Do we see that there might be any repercussions or consequences for us cutting off the bike trails that move beyond Terrace in our downtown area or beyond Sanford on our Laketon corridor that go out to the to the beach. Go.
Sure. So to answer the first question, as a part of the Terrace project, which is currently boulevarded, Terrace will become just a two-lane, two-way road, and so the other side of Terrace, so the what are currently the northbound lanes of Terrace will become the sole street, and there will be one lane in each direction. The other side of Terrace is going to become essentially a linear park, and the trail will sit in that space. And the crossing of Apple will take place at the signal, where
And it
Sanford
doesn't actually cross the road because there is no road.
Well, it does cross. It does have to cross Apple, but it will be a part of. There will be no. There will be no currently southbound.
Right, I'm there.
Terrace. Yep.
I totally get it.
All right. And the other question, those parts of the trail are still obviously, if I understand the question, the parts say that go west out to the lake shore and west further on Laketon than Sanford. Those will still be, important assets to the community. They may not be on the route from Grand Rapids, to Hart or whatever it may be, but they'll still be, a wonderful part of our community, even though they may not be on that main trail itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. Vice Mayor German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Could you explain how Sanford Street, actually from Southern on down to just Apple Avenue, just pick that area, will the roads be somewhat smaller, and will there be parking on the actual north side, I guess? Because right now it's a two-way street now. So will it still continue a two-way also?
Yes, it will still be a two-way.
Okay.
We're going to recapture some of that width that was necessary when Sanford was part of the National Highway System, or NHS route. It was recently removed from that, and so as we rebuild the street, we're able to make it narrower and recapture some of that space for parking and for trail on the east.
And the parking will be just on one side, going northbound facing from the school, correct?
I'm going to have to look at my details here. And again, I apologize. This is something that Director Evans probably would have off the top of his head. But my understanding is that there's going to be parking along the majority of the road on the west side. There will be portions that will have it on both, but that for the majority of the street, the parking will be on the west side.
Opposite of the trail.
Correct, opposite the trail.
Okay. Different.
And so at this time, you're basically just asking for support from the commission and the community to apply for this grant. You've not done the final engineering necessarily for Sanford. I mean, we're in progress of the terrace, but some of the minutia is still to be worked out in terms of how exactly we're going to be implementing this. But our desire is to move forward, though, with connecting those two trails, and you're asking for our support for that.
Correct, and more specifically, there will be there is planned to be a resolution on tomorrow's agenda in support of the grant application, and that is a necessary part of the grant application itself.
Okay, and that's on our consent agenda tomorrow, folks. So you have any questions, ask them now, so we can not pick apart the entire consent agenda tomorrow. Support. Hopefully, we'll have a very briefer meeting tomorrow relative to tonight.
Support.
Tonight was going to be
Is that a word?
long with all these items on here, but some good conversations happening tonight. So that we may hear from our residents who have joined us tonight. Unless commissioners, you have any questions or input, I'm going to go to public comment because we've had some folks show up tonight. So first person is Mr. Bodville Mast, a resident of the city of Muskegon. He's here to speak on the Lake Shore to Laketon Trail. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Aaron Bodville Mast. Moved to the city in 2019 over in the Beechwood Bluffton neighborhood, but we're always downtown a lot. We're members of the St. Mary's Our Lady of Grace Parish. I'm also the president of the West Michigan Trails. West Michigan Trails supported the project. Obviously, it's a huge regional deal, but and I'm also with and Ray, our president of the MCBC, Muskegon County Bicycling Coalition, will also speak, representing us. I want to speak because this not only does this have a great regional impact and will bring people through the city, it'll get us, right through the heart of downtown, right by the farmers market, right by the city hall, right by the high school. I think this is what I love about this project versus other trail projects, and I work in my job at Ottawa County Parks on trail projects, is this road diet concept is really transformative. And it's not only a regional trail project or a recreational thing, it's setting the tone to address problems that seem like global problems. You need to redesign cities to make them not so car-centric, but people-centric. And it's affordable housing, it's densification, it's transit, but it's also walkability, bikeability, and green space. And creating a green space strip through the middle of the city, doing the road diet in Sanford, is just going to lead the way that other communities aren't doing. And we have the opportunity to do this here. So I want to commend city staff and the city commission for doing this. And also wanted to mention, please keep pushing MDOT to do this on Shoreline, because I know it's a long shot, but if we don't push, it won't happen. And if we can do it at Terrace, let's set the tone. Let's do it on Shoreline and make the city much better. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Bob Lamass. All right, next up we have Mr. Raymond McLeod. McLeod?
Oh, yeah,
McLeod. We'll be seeing you again tomorrow as well. You're going to be presenting.
I am the president of the Muskegon County Bicycling Coalition, and I'll have a short presentation tomorrow. I am here to offer support and be behind this project 100%. I was hoping, the only thing that I was hoping to hear tonight a little bit more of, besides the funding, which obviously is super, super important, is also that there was some input from some advocacy group about the planning and the designing of the trail. So many times we get behind on that. We think in terms of doing these projects in terms of the way we've always done them, and then we just kind of slap it together. Muskegon has done that before with other road projects. We get the funding together for the cars, and then we paint them afterwards. However we can, do the best we can for the bikes, and sometimes our best efforts are actually counterproductive for the bikes, even though we've done the best we can. It's actually puts bicyclists at greater danger the way we've done it. So I truly hope that as this project moves forward, that it's the project itself is not left up to people doing the best they can, but people are brought in that know a little bit about bicycling and bicycling structure, and are brought in as advocates for that to help with that design of it. But Leanne and I have been talking for probably 5 years about this type of a project that would create this beautiful loop to connect this area, this city hall area, down to the downtown area, all the way up to the downtown area, to the Muskegon Heights downtown area. And to see it coming so close to fruition is a beautiful thing. And it's just, we're so excited to see this getting so close, and really appreciate you supporting this. It looks to me like it's a 100% project in terms of start to end, thinking it through all the way, and not just, boy, this is a good idea, let's throw it out there. Thinking it through and doing it the right way all the way. So thank you very much for your being so forward thinking.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. I appreciate you and your group's efforts with the Muskegon County Bicycle Coalition. I look forward to your presentation tomorrow. I believe Lawrence Spataro, is he here? I think he left. All right. We do also have Miss Cindy Larson. She left some remarks in the event that she was not here for this. I'm just going to read her remarks. The Muskegon Chamber's Taking It Outdoors Committee supports the Lakeshore Connector for a number of reasons. Outdoor experiences enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors. This project will help to make Muskegon the best place to live, work, and play. Connector trails are also great for wellness. Walking, running, and biking need to be part of our local culture to support personal health. A healthy culture builds family and neighborhoods. This is a win for all. Thank you, Cindy Larson, Muskegon Lakeshore Chamber President. Is there anyone else from the audience that wishes to speak on this item, the Lakeshore Laketon Trail Connector? No? All right. Thank you, Mr. Van der Heide.
Thank you.
Next up, Government Alliance on Race and Equity update.
Hello again. You guys are gonna get tired of seeing me.
No, I'm excited to hear about this update.
Okay, let me find the correct piece of paper. Okay, so as you all know, we joined in a community of, I forget what we're called. So used to the acronyms. Anyway, we joined Ottawa County to work with a consulting firm that's going to help us through the Government Alliance on Race and Equity process so that we can address our programs, policies, and procedures so that we can be more equitable. So as of late, we have worked on an equity vision statement. And so I included in the detailed summary the questions that the consultant asked us to consider. And as you are, well, I guess we have new commissioners. So we also have a core team that we put together of our city staff. It's very cross-functional. The idea was to get people from different levels of experience, different levels of supervision. We definitely want diversity in every way that we can get it. So we've got this good group. And so we worked hard on addressing these questions and really trying to think of how we want our city to be. And so when we drafted this equity vision statement, we started with our vision statement that we have just for the city, which I should have included on here. But our vision statement already started us in a good place for building upon. And so that's what we did. We started with that and worked as a group to refine it. And so the equity statement that you have in front of you is where we have settled. And as I was sitting in the audience, I was thinking I probably should make this a formal agenda item for a vote so that you guys can approve it. So I apologize for not doing that, but I can get that on the second meeting in March. So what we have come up with is two statements. Muskegon is an ethnically diverse city where we embrace differences and value relationships. Access to city services and programs is universal, and people are engaged in community building. The diversity of our community is reflected in city businesses, events, boards, commissions, and staff. So that's what our vision is. So happy to have your input. If you want to contact me, email me, whatever works best for you. I can, if it would help you to get something at the top of your email, I can resend this with the current vision statement that we have just citywide. And you can provide me your comments.
So do you anticipate this equity vision statement to replace our current vision statement or to complement it?
Complement.
Okay. So just to read it so you know what our current vision statement is. Muskegon, the premier shoreline city offering a vibrant, affordable, and ethnically diverse city where citizens feel safe, enjoy their neighborhoods, and have access to their city government. So you're going to be bringing this equity vision statement to not our tomorrow general session, but the
March 22nd.
22nd general session for formal adoption. So commissioners, if you have any input on perhaps tweaking it or adding to it, please reach out to Deputy Manager Mike Zell before that meeting, and actually I would say ASAP,
Sooner than
because
that.
now that we're publishing our agendas sooner, they're getting formalized sooner, and so I would say give your input to her within the next couple days.
Yeah, my agenda item is due tomorrow at 4:00.
Yes.
But this is just going to be a cover sheet. It won't be, any major work for me to do. So,
Do you have any question or input right now, commissioners? No? Yes? Commissioner St. Clair?
I like it.
thanks. Yeah, it's really been a pleasure working with this group. They're
I
quite
would
dedicated
love to hear
to
more
it.
about that. I would, because I was about to ask you, like, if we weren't already have a long meeting and more items on here, I would love to hear more about the work that you and our team has been doing with Ottawa County and as part of that government alliance on race and equity. So maybe we have an opportunity in the future to hear more, elaborate on the work that you've been doing. But I appreciate you bringing this equity vision statement to us and look forward to formally adopting it. Vice Mayor German.
Yes, well, I'm thinking about it. Thank you, Mayor. Our Deputy Manager, Mike Sell. Due to formal trainings that I've had with diversity, equity, and inclusion, one of the things that they're putting in their statements now is access. And I think that's something that could be beneficial to the statement, because in order to have equity, you have to have access to it.
In the current one,
So,
access.
Yeah, there's a phrase in there that access to city services and programs is universal.
okay, access.
And-
Okay,
So that I
well,
agree
okay,
with you.
too.
That was
Yeah,
very
okay,
important to
okay,
us
yep,
too.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Thanks.
okay that you missed it. Yeah,
All right.
a lot.
You're on point.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah, we worked hard on it. Like I said, it's a really good group.
Yeah, thank you for taking that initiative and working with that group. Good work. All right, thank you. Next item. Oh, you're not going anywhere.
It's me again.
It is reorganization. And
It
so
is.
here we're basically talking about different ways that we can bolster communications, community engagement, as well as move forward with greater support of parks and recreation in our city. And there's different ways that we can do this. And so our Deputy City Manager is going to speak on some of those ways and seek input from us on how to proceed. So take it away.
Thank you. So we've been talking for some time about, the things that are important to us, and even through our last goal setting session. And I have heard from the commission, both past and present, that community engagement is very important to you. And so we've been talking about how we can do that better. And so we've been talking for months about different ways that we can go about doing this. And then, other things have come up with staff leaving or, taking on events and all kinds of things that have added to that conversation. And so what I'd like to do today is go over these 3 options with you. I'm sure there could be many more than 3 options. These are the 3 that have risen to the top for the people that have been involved in the conversation. But I would like to have your input on them. And I tried to, in these org charts, I tried to put in really what the functions were and not talk so much about the positions and the people. We'll certainly get to that. I think what I'm looking for is an overall direction from you on what you think makes the most sense at a high level, and then staff will work on the details. One thing I want to make sure to mention before we get into some of this detail is that there are budget implications with all of these, and staff have really talked about how do we transition into whatever this full picture is going to be. We know that we don't recommend going forward with, okay, this is our new vision, hire all these people. Because for one thing, that's a huge budget implication. And for another thing, we want to make sure that when we do this, it's going to work. And so the finance director and the clerk and I have talked quite a lot about how do we do this in a way that we set ourselves up for success? How do we start some things and see how they work before expanding them to additional positions? So just please keep that in mind. And those are details that we still have yet to determine. All right, so. All righty. Okay, so this first option is the option that creates a new division, and that new division would have three main functions, and you can see that better actually on the next slide. So this is the new division, and the three main functions would be communications, city clerk, and parks and recreation. So there would be a department head level position that would be responsible for community support and engagement, would handle communications, the social district, neighborhood associations. Then there would be the city clerk as a department head, as we currently have, and the administrative services that come with the city clerk. And then we'd be creating a Parks and Rec department that would be pretty similar to what we had with leisure services years ago. And so Parks and Recreation would cover parks maintenance, probably cemetery, forestry, marina, and campground. Some of those details might change depending on how we see this operating. And then recreational programs, neighborhood appearance programs, and events. So as I'm sure you're aware, these things currently happen. They're just kind of spread all over the organization. The thing that is unique about this option is it pulls the parks maintenance functions and possibly the cemetery, forestry, marina work away from DPW. And what it also, so if you saw the org chart for DPW right now, I mean, the one that's in front of you right now is actually quite full, but it also would include parks and cemetery and forestry and marina, and boat launches. So when you look at our organization, DPW is a very large entity in the organization, and finance is a very large entity in the organization. And so what this proposal does is it balances things out a little bit better across the organization. So we, public safety remains untouched, and development services remains untouched. Not that we don't have some ideas for some tweaks in there too, but finance, DPW, and this new division end up balancing out quite well. Happy to have questions, comments, thoughts on this. This is probably the meat of it right here.
Commissioners? Getting a little late in the night.
It's perfect. I can leave.
Yeah.
Except for which one's perfect.
Right, exactly.
There's three options. I will say I'm super excited about the prospect of creating a dedicated Parks and Recreation department. Whether that's housed with DPW or whether that's housed with a new Community Support and Engagement division, I'm thrilled at the prospect of creating that new department, identifying revenue streams that are going to be dedicated to continuing funding that, and potentially even having a dedicated fund, but that's something that was still to be explored and discussed with our finance director. But I really like that. And I also like whether it's creating a new division or whether it's giving more support and resources to the clerk's office, giving more support to communications and community engagement. And so I really like the thrust of what staff is exploring here, and I really appreciate you bringing these options to us. Now it's our turn to give some kind of direction to staff as to which model to pursue, because we need to figure out how to pay for it. Director Grant needs to figure out a way, like, do we have the resources to make this happen? Or which do we need to perhaps dedicate some ARPA dollars for this to build out in the near term? Because those ARPA dollars, we have to commit how we're going to spend them by the end of 2024. They have to be spent by the end of 2026. So there may be opportunities to fund some of this with those dollars on an annual basis for the next, several years, with the anticipation that we're going to have to find other resources to continue them after 2026. But that's just some additional context. So, commissioners, do you have any questions or input on these? Is there any options that particularly pique your interest?
Would it be helpful for me
about any of the options?
Would it be helpful for me to go through the other two instead of doing them separately? Okay. Okay, so option 2 takes that Parks and Rec department and department head and puts it all under DPW. So it's the functions are all the same. It's special events, it's parks maintenance, cemetery forestry, recreation programs, the marina, and launches. So it takes all those things and puts it into Public Works. And then this is just like so you can see better what the Parks and Rec department covers. It's the same as in the last option. And then we modify the clerk's office to add in some additional functions and staff for communications, and then the social district and the neighborhood associations that are currently housed in development services would come here. Most of the rest of it is the same. So and I guess what's different here is that none of the events activities are happening in the clerk's office anymore. Those went to Parks and Rec.
Right.
So the clerk's office loses some work, but then they gain some other work. And so this option increases the size of the finance division a little bit and increases the size of Public Works. All right, moving on. Okay, so this third option leaves parks maintenance at Public Works. And the idea that we had here, I can't remember. So the idea we had here was that we would make the Parks Department a department head level position rather than right now it's just like a frontline supervisor. And then we would probably have an assistant to that department head so that the department head could focus more on asset management and capital planning and those kinds of things related to our parks that, we just don't tend to have a lot of time to handle. So we're still putting an emphasis on parks here. We're just doing it in a different way. The rec programs are not included in this. The events are not included here. It's really just still parks maintenance and asset management for the parks across the city. And then we, so this is that same community engagement division. It just looks a little bit different because this is set up so that the events are handled with this division, and then it still has to be that cross coordination between this division and Public Works to get the events done, because we typically rely on the Parks Department to provide a lot of the city labor and barricades and all those kinds of things for those events. So the this division, it doesn't look a lot different from the first option. It's just that it doesn't have that cohesive Parks and Rec department. The duties are split. We still do have enhanced communication in this option as well with the neighborhood associations and social district and those kinds of things. Is that clear?
I have a question.
Just-
Or,
Somebody,
you
no,
go
go
first.
ahead.
Commissioner McGorman?
I don't know how much this matters, but physically, would Parks and Rec then be here at City Hall or with DPW?
Well, Parks and Rec would be managed here
Okay.
with the one option and managed at DPW with the other option. In any situation, Parks Maintenance is still going to be housed at DPW because they have the space, the equipment, the storage.
Which I think makes sense. It's just almost like I want to see like a line from DPW Parks and Rec. Well, I guess if we were doing it this way, community engagement, like that events person, there needs to be like a similar line on both sides, I think. And I don't know, it's late, but I just feel like some of these versions I really like seeing the events fall under Parks and Rec, but then even looking at this one now too, I don't know, sometimes I think the events really are their own thing, but it'd be nice for that person to have an equal then on the DPW side for the event logistics, I think.
Yeah, this option is kind of like how we're set up now, but beefed up a bit. And so the conversation around the Parks and Rec department has been, that's a way to get all of those things happening together under one person.
Okay.
So, the whoever the person is that's working on the event isn't trying to beg Parks for work
Right.
when Parks is saying, well, our main focus is mowing the grass.
Right.
And so, we don't really have time to do your extra special thing.
Yep.
So that was part of the impetus for trying to
Okay.
create that Parks and Rec department, was get that all housed under one department head, and then nobody has to ask, what's my priority? Your supervisor's telling you what your priority is.
Any follow-up, Commissioner German? No? Vice Mayor German?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For the Parks and Rec Department, are we looking at having a subcommittee also?
Yes, that's underway regardless. That's really not, none of these options will have an impact on that. That we're just moving forward with
Right.
exploring that and figuring out how we start that.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
I mean, I got one.
I'll see your pen.
I know, I'm trying to be kind. I just have one question for Deputy Director Mike Sell. Is there a option that staff is really rallying behind?
Yes, I feel like Leo's not here to speak for himself. But I feel like Leo, Ann, and I are all leaning toward option one.
Oh, good. So am I.
Oh, good.
Where the organization is better balanced.
Yeah. So, the reason that I asked that is because Holly Fredrickson, who works with me on the CRC, had a meeting with Leo last week, and he shared with us not that he's strapped, but that he has a very full plate, right? And so we just want to make sure that there's a balance of everything on all of your shoulders, because many hands make light work. So I would be inclined to support whatever the staff sees as the best option, because y'all do the work, not me. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Ramsey?
It sounded like there were other people that were supportive of that.
Can I just say ditto?
Commissioner Hood?
Yeah, I would be supportive of that too, because I always believe that,
Display that again. It's display.
staff, you're working. You do this every day. And we do pay you to make those kind of decisions or suggestions. So, yeah, I would be tuned to go with the staff.
Deputy Director, the Vice Mayor asked if you could just play it again.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Option one, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. that the part that you wanted to see?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, question now.
Yes, Vice
Okay,
President.
now this community engagement director, this is something that has to be funded.
Correct.
Right. And will there be an assistant or anything like that, or?
That's a division head position.
Okay.
And so then the community support department would have, their own department and a department head. City clerk would remain as a department head, and then the Parks and Rec department would be a department head. So there'd be
Okay, gotcha.
3 department head positions and then a new division head.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Emery.
I'm going to assume that you've looked at the cost effectiveness of all 3 of these options.
Well, back when I only had 2 options, I started doing some work just looking at salaries. And then we made this 3rd option, and I didn't have time to look at, so I don't even know which fits which option anymore. The thing is that, I need to work with the finance department because, like I said, I was only looking at salaries, not benefits, and, they can help me understand that better. And all of these options require additional staff. And like I said, we really want to phase this in. So while they all have their own financial impact, I don't know that they're going to be terribly different. And what we're trying to do is have that impact start out small, see how things are working before we decide to go hire the next position, and kind of keep doing that. So
Baby steps.
baby steps.
That makes sense.
Any other questions or input, commissioners? You have a follow-up,
I
Commissioner
just
Emery?
want to say I support option 1.
Yeah, I think it accomplishes the thrust of what this commission has, both past and present commission has wanted to accomplish, which is to bolster that community engagement, that communications, that partnership, as well as giving more resource support to our parks and recreation. And so I see that being accomplished with either option 1 or 2. 3 was my least preferred of them, but yeah, I think it's sensible that either of those options accomplish what this commission has desired, and defer to your judgment on which is ideal, not only from an administrative perspective, but also financially as well. And so I'm sure this might get tweaked when pen gets put to paper and
I'm
resources
sure.
are identified to how to support this going forward. But I'm excited that we're taking these steps to adjust how our city functions and better serve our residents and our community.
That's the goal.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I think that concludes my performance. So
We just have one more item on the agenda, and then public comment and adjournment. So next up is Height Overlay District, and I think that is Mr. Franzik, our planning manager.
I think we do. Meetings after this.
Great performance.
Your meetings after this.
Yes.
Evening.
Okay, Ms. Franzik, okay, you're presenting the Hike Overlay District.
So I included some information in the packets from the Imagine Muskegon Lake Plan. There are some recommendations from the Channel District to create a height overlay district, which would allow homes to be up to 3 stories. Most residential structures now are limited to 2 stories. Our thinking when this was adopted a few years ago was to really allow property owners to be able to take advantage of the lake views back on Nelson Street. And we thought a good way to do this would be able to allow up to a third story or possibly even a fraction of a story where they would maybe have like a little gable that goes up in a room. You see that in other areas like Seaside, Florida. Really, I think we just want to be able to let people invest in their properties and take advantage of the lake views and increase the tax base. And if we do this on Nelson Street, they're really not blocking anybody else's views on Beach Street or back in Harbor Town. We do have a couple that is planning on building a home this fall, and I really thought this would be a good opportunity to bring this here now, so we don't miss out on that. If they are really thrilled about the opportunity to be able to build a third story. There was also an addition to a home a couple years ago. They would have appreciated that as well. So there are still some buildable lots on Nelson Street, and there are some other homes that are aging. So we think this would be a good way to help people to invest in their properties and really be able to take in those lake views. So I just wanted to bring this up tonight and kind of just seeking approval to go to the Beechwood Bluffton Neighborhood Association and kind of get their input on what they think about this and potentially bring it to Planning Commission for amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Franzik. Questions or input, commissioners? No? Are y'all good with him proceeding?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'm looking for the map of where the overlay height district will be. I think I've found it. Is it the channel district map? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Commissioner Emery's gig.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear from you what you've heard from your neighbors.
I haven't heard anything.
Oh, okay, so there's no rumble.
So, yeah, please talk to them and get back to us.
All right.
And I'll talk to them Thursday night. Oh, that's what I got.
So I'm not exactly sure how to proceed. I'll plan on going to one of their upcoming meetings, and
Oh, they'll find you.
Yeah.
sure they will.
It's out now.
Yeah.
Should I come back here before bringing it to Planning Commission? Should I kind of see how it goes and
I
see it?
say see how it goes, see what they say, and
It seems
you know,
favorable.
it's-
Bring it to Planning Commission.
It's what, a mile? It's not even a mile long.
No, it's
street,
just a
so-
couple blocks.
Yeah.
And we've already done this on Lakeshore, form-based code in the Lakeside District. We do allow 3 stories there. Haven't had any buildings yet, but there's chances for it to work there as well.
Yeah, you have an opportunity this Thursday if you're available. They're having their general meeting and potluck, their annual potluck and general meeting this Thursday, starting at 6 o'clock. So if you are available to join them, they're inviting city representatives to come speak. And so if you might want to take advantage of that opportunity, otherwise coordinate with the BB&A president, Chris Willis, for an upcoming meeting. You may also want to consider reaching out to Harbortown Condo Association and sharing with them because they're also neighbors to this property or the street where you're looking to rezone. But I think that, after consulting with those neighbors, it's your judgment as to whether or not to bring it to the Planning Commission and then ultimately make its way back here to the City Commission for a final determination.
Sounds good.
Y'all good with that? Oh, Vice Mayor German.
Oh, no. I was going to concur with Commissioner Emery. Due to the fact when we talk about any zoning, you could see the repercussions of what happens when the community comes together and they don't feel that they have that input. So I think it would be in the best interest to attend that meeting and come back and let us know what the community says over there.
So it's a go.
If you're not going to be able to make it Thursday, would you like us to broach it and say, hey, reach out to you, or that let them know that you'll be reaching out to them for
Yeah, I don't really have anything prepared to
Okay.
speak on Thursday, but if you want to mention that, I definitely
Just give them a heads up.
I'd like to come to the next one.
Okay. Roger that. Thank you so much, Mr. Franzik. All right, commissioners, before we go to public comment, do you have any questions or input, or no, questions about items that are on our general session agenda tomorrow? For staff. No? All right, we have a few people here that would like to speak for public comment. Commissioner Ramsey?
I have two things to say that are not on either thing, so I can sign up for public comment if you like.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
I
I will.
Could this be potentially reserved for any other business tomorrow?
No. They're very two quick things. Thing number one, everybody in city offices and all the commissioners, elected staff got an invite from both Corey and Leanne to join us Saturday to march in the parade downtown. So if you're interested, please sign up. This is the third year we've tried to do this. COVID sort of thwarted it one year, but it'll be exciting coming down and walk with us. And the other one can wait till tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey.
And I have an item on that agenda for tomorrow.
For tomorrow?
Yeah, that would be item E and F for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but you don't have any questions right
No,
now?
no.
You just want to pull it from the consent
Yeah,
tomorrow?
right.
Giving a heads up, E and F will be removed from consent tomorrow. Thank you, Vice Mayor German. All right, so we have a few people that would like to speak in public comment. First up, we have Mr. Jason Cummins, neighbor to the north, Twin Lake, wanting to speak with regard to the Lakeshore Legacy Project. You have 3 minutes to give your remarks, Mr. Cummins. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm here to speak on the Lakeshore Legacy Project. Terry's a longtime friend of mine. We're looking at almost 20 years, I think. I've been a music industry person in this town for 22 years now. I've been a DJ, booking agent, band manager, all sorts of stuff. Recently, Terry came to me literally a few days after I decided that I was done with the music industry, and he said he needed help with his project. At first I was hesitant and I said, nope, I'm done. I'm spending time with my kids. I gotta be a dad. And then before I went to walk away, he said that the reason he was doing this was to bridge the divide of income inequality. Didn't quite understand what he meant until he told me that when he was a kid, his upbringing wasn't the greatest, and his parents often had to tell him no, that he couldn't go to events because they just couldn't afford it. I too came from that type of environment. My mom worked 2 jobs. She sent me to Edmonds Market on numerous occasions with paper food stamps to go buy groceries. There was many times where I was told no. And now that I'm a dad, that's the worst feeling in the world. When you gotta tell your kid that you can't do something because you can't even hardly keep the lights on. So when he asked me to do this, I was all for it. And since jumping on board, I've had an opportunity to talk with many local musicians, regional musicians, and even national. They love what we're doing, and everybody is just jumping on board. Right now, we have a huge lineup already going, and I have probably at least 24 more bands or solo groups that are interested in jumping on board with us. So, long story short, I hope that you guys will jump on board with Terry and help him out however you can. You know, maybe it's not the big number, but maybe you guys can figure out a way to do what you can to help us out with this, because I'd love to see this come to fruition. There's a lot of people out here that could benefit from it, and I would love to see kids finally get to see concerts that they don't get to see, because normally around here, every concert that we do is usually adult type stuff. There's alcohol being served. Kids, nobody wants to bring their kids to stuff like that. They don't want them being around drunks and stuff like that. This is a perfect opportunity for kids to get out there and see what they can become later on in life. My kids, they look at me like I'm a hero because I get to introduce them to all these big-time musicians. Right now, one of the bands that we have booked, Shallow Side, is coming all the way from Cullman, Alabama. My kids have learned every single word to every one of their songs. And right now, I'm the hero in their eyes because this might be my last hurrah in the music business. If that's the case, I get to be a hero in my kids' eyes. And that's all thanks to Terry and Joy and the rest of the Lakeshore Legacy Project. So please consider helping us out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cummins. All right, we also have Miss Louisa Yonker of North Muskegon joining us. Please give your name, and you have 3 minutes for remarks.
Thank you for having me. I'm Louisa Yonker, and I'm on the board for the Lakeshore Legacy Project. And I'm really excited for a lot of reasons. One, because it's going to just help our community, and that's what we're about, is watching Muskegon go. And so I feel that there is a need for this. Yeah, we did utilize the social sandbox last summer for free events, but this is just going to elevate that even more. And I'm excited to what that's going to bring, especially for the brick and mortars, because we do know that those people are still recovering from COVID. So that's not a surprise to anybody who is involved downtown. And I'm excited because then I get to bring my family down there for these free concert events. And, you know, from the list that we have going so far, they're going to be bigger acts. And so, you know, Terry's put forth a lot of this money of his own. Yeah, we are still fundraising some of that. And I do feel that, you know, asking for some help from the city, especially like in the past, you guys have helped other organizations that weren't from this community. I feel like keeping the money in our community to help our community, and then you guys would be able to recoup that by social district cups and you know, some other avenues that you guys probably already discussed. So that's my take for the Lakeshore Legacy, and I'm also for you know, Ride Muskegon, and you know, giving them what they want, because we don't want these big companies coming in here and taking over our city with all these different scooters. Again, we want to keep the money in our community. Yeah, maybe there's some wiggle room there for, you know, working out the commission part for you guys, for the city, to benefit a little bit more for that as the years come. But I still 100% support, you know, that project as well. And I mean, I like to, you know, explore different areas in the city, and I don't always want to drive there, and I don't always want to walk there either. So like, you know, that would help connect those different areas that are kind of spread out through our community more. So that's my take on both of those.
Thanks so much for your input.
Thanks.
We have Miss Joy Puffer, our neighbor from the Campbell Field neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Joy Puffer. Okay, so there's like a lot going in my head right now, but I wanted to say for our nonprofit, the Lakeshore Legacy Project, you know, the past couple of years, the world has been crazy. I think that what my husband and I and our board are trying to bring to Muskegon is a feeling of community again, a feeling of, hey, this is, you know, we can be out again, just a feeling of freedom. And I think that's been missing. And I think that it's not just the concert series, because, you know, we have so many more plans for Muskegon. You know, my husband and I work hard. We have our regular jobs, and we put 200% into everything. So obviously, if we had the money ourselves, we wouldn't have to be here. But we need the help. And how great would it be to, you know, watch us go as partners? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak in a public comment? No? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn, only so that we may then enter a Community Relations Committee meeting after this.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor German, seconded by Commissioner St. Clair to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Do we need to take a bio break before?
No, let's just keep going.
Hour in the evening becoming light. Thursday.